From the top of the mountain of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show, including Kingdom of Nye Radio and Revolution Radio. If you want to take a listen to our archives, they are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, do a little shopping at the SOR Vault, grab a great book from We Read the Night, join the Space Travelers for $5 a month, and Captain Shirk has you all up to date on the SOR Newswire. Tonight's show is brought to you by CHIVE Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by donating to CHIVE Charities today. You can find them on our website. What are we looking for in 2020 when it comes to UFOs? Is it going to be like previous years where the hype around the subject launched the topic to a huge level? Or is this story going back in the closet, hidden away for another decade or so? Looking into this is longtime UFO researcher Grant Cameron, who usually comes packed with information with him. Grant is one of the premier researchers keeping tabs on what we get to look forward to regarding UFOs 2020. Then at the bottom of hour number 3, I will bring you the SOR Newswire, brought to you by Paranoia Magazine. My good friend Grant Cameron, great to talk to you for the first time in 2020 on the show. How you been doing, my friend?
Just fantastic, Dave, and let's do a show, and let's get to what's going to happen, what's not going to happen. We've done that for many years. You and I have sort of chit-chatted behind the scenes as to what's going on, and we're the Canadian guys, and we're sort of watching the Americans sort of perform.
Well, you know what? That's like hockey too, my friend, because I don't think there's a Canadian team that could win the Stanley Cup this year. Well, yeah. For the first, it's been 27 years, so I mean, why start now?
Yeah, exactly. But it's. I think it's going to be interesting. I've sort of moved away even more now from the sort of the nuts and bolts, the technology thing. There was actually an article I was just reading this evening, having coffee, and it was this article about the Skinwalker Ranch, where a lot of the stories are just repeating themselves. This whole thing about Skinwalker Ranch, why they went to Skinwalker Ranch. And I must have said this a couple of years ago, that the Skinwalker Ranch, my understanding is there was really no UFOs there. Jacques Vallée said, that's the last thing there was there. It was all this other weird stuff going on there. They had orbs, they had portals, they had, poltergeist type stuff. And the main thing they had was the support phenomena. And I'm writing a book. I've got a series of books. I've got my book, Alien Bedtime Stories, has just been reissued with the Trump chapter. And I've got a book coming out on ports in the next couple of days. Not ports, on contact modalities. But I've got a book that'll be shortly coming out on ports and manifestations. And the more I look at the phenomena, the more I think that this is going to be a big part of this thing, because you'll talk to experiencers and you'll say, they'll talk about the being or whatever, and I'll say, you ever have anything fly around the room? Do you ever have anything fall out of the sky or stuff appear that you came from nowhere or whatever? And they'll say, oh yeah. And that's what was happening at Skinwalker Ranch. I've got a list of about 20 things that happened at Skinwalker Ranch where, the prime example was the woman comes home, has all these groceries, takes all the groceries out of the bag, puts them puts all the groceries away, goes in the next room, comes back, and all the groceries are back in the bag. And then, the post hole auger ends up 45 feet or 50 feet into a cottonwood tree. It disappears, and they find it in this cottonwood tree. And then the guy's worried about his bulls, and he says, I hope they don't get my bulls. And he goes running out, and the bulls are gone. And they end up in this trailer, this locked trailer. And he pulls the lock off the trailer, and they're in there. And so this article just came out, which talks about the fact that this was the main focus of the money that was put up by Bigelow and all this sort of stuff. And this was to look at Skinwalker Ranch, not so much UFOs. And it was the idea that they were trying to monitor Skinwalker Ranch and figure out, how do you get something to go through metal? How do you put a bull into a locked trailer? How do you make groceries disappear? How do you make, portals open? How do you, all this kind of stuff? And it's this weird aspect of the paranormal. And that's when I did contact modalities. So what I do in contact modalities is I say there's basically UFOs is only one of 70 contact modalities. And that it's sort of like we're all in this field, and it's the ability to access the field. So we've got a left brain that's giving us lots of noise and stuff, and it sort of cuts us off and makes us think we're living in this physical world, and yet we're in this world where you have all these abilities to do things, and some people are able to tap into it. And that's what's happening at Skinwalker Ranch, that there's something's broken through there, and they're trying to figure out how do you tap into this kind of stuff. So that's where I'm sort of going with this, like with this port thing. And some of the stories there are just absolutely just crazy stuff. And so I got from that in the other contact modality. So I get into moving away from, seeing lights in the sky and, UFO sightings and stuff to this sort of side phenomena, which I think they know about. They know this consciousness thing, that there's this element behind there that they don't really understand too well. They may have a craft, they may have bodies, but they really can't fly the thing. They can't turn it on. They can't really do anything with it. And it's all this sort of weird paranormal stuff. So what I've gotten into lately is this really bizarre phenomenon. I got sort of contacted by a guy who was working with U.S. intelligence and with DARPA, and they were reviewing contracts and stuff. And I've yet to interview him. I've had some chats with him, and he's done a couple of interviews. And he talks about the fact that the military was big time into militarizing. They're trying to militarize anything to do with seances, ectoplasm, anything that moves in the paranormal world. What they do is they look at it and say, oh, there's a threat because Russia may be able to do, say, psychokinesis or, where you're moving stuff through walls and stuff like that, or making things appear or disappear, which has all sorts of, defense significance. And so they say, well, maybe the Russians get it, so we got to study it because just in case the Russians are working on it, and the Chinese are working on this kind of stuff. So they look at it like that, and then you basically figure, can we make a weapon out of this? And this is what I've heard behind the scenes, is that the military is really interested in this whole paranormal thing about how do you make something appear and disappear. And so I've now gotten into these what's called physical mediumship. So you get these crossovers between, which people don't realize, you get these crossovers between UFO and, say, physical mediums and, say, psychics. And so in the UFO field, you'll say to people, have you ever have anything appear, disappear, and coins and stuff like that? And people say, oh, yeah, I got coins, and they all appear heads up, like if you've seen the story of the Paranormal Rangers. They do this one investigation where they're in a building over a weekend, and 64 coins fall, all heads up. So it's this weird type of stuff. But what you see in physical mediumship, you see exactly the same thing. You see ports appearing, things disappearing, reappearing, and it also happens with mediums. There was a big medium it was studied by Stanley Krippner, the big parapsychologist in Brazil. Same thing. He was making this stuff appear, disappear, and so what you see is this. So I'm starting to get the idea. It's all the same thing, and I'm actually writing a book. I'm in the middle of it right now, and it's called Extraterrestrial or Maybe Not. I've actually moved to where Valet is, where some of the early researchers were. The more I look at it, the more I think it may have an ET component, but it is really something that I think is much more complex and much more spiritual, much less physical than people think. And I'll give you the example I was just working on today. I did an interview yesterday with guy named Ron Johnson, and I've interviewed him before, and he's on my White House UFO YouTube channel, but I did a long interview with him because he's got really, really serious heart condition. He's supposed to have been dead at Christmas, and he's still in pretty good shape. He's still hanging on, and they keep saying your liver and your kidneys are going to start shutting down and stuff. And so he's trying to write this book. He's documented his whole life of experiences with 8 different types of beings, and he's a Latter-day Saint guy from Utah. Very straight-laced guy, very soft-spoken and stuff. And I started talking to him yesterday, and I'm doing this interview, and he said he had 36 out-of-body experiences, which is the other thing you'll see with experiencers, that a lot of them have had out-of-body experiences, like 80% or something like that. It's just really high phenomena. So I said to him, well, with these near-death experiences, like, where do you go? I mean, what happens? And he said he believes that the beings are in control of this. And I was actually taken into the spirit world 3 times to meet with his mother. and his mother was in the spirit world, and she's showing him around the spirit world. So you get into this connection where the aliens are taking someone into the spirit world, and he's talking to his mother. And then at one point he says, he's talking about the rooms. They have these rooms, and you get a room when you come, and then he says, my mother takes me down to the other end of this building, and there's this table, and there's these crystals in the table. And he said there's about 50 crystals in this table. And I said, really? Because I know this story. There's a crossover to UFOs. So the crossover is, if you remember back 1988, there's a UFO documentary called UFO Cover-Up Live. Everybody thought this was a bunch of garbage. Richard Doty was on there, Robert Collins. They were all backlit for the Falcon and the Condor. And that's when they first introduced the live alien idea, and they introduced the idea of the autopsy stuff at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And a lot of new stuff was introduced there. And it was this idea that the CIA had run it. They were behind the scenes, and they were orchestrating this to do like a gradual disclosure, like they're doing through TTSA and through Bill Moore and all these kind of things that they've done over the years. So in that documentary, if you look at this UFO Cover-Up Live, which is still on the internet, you can look at this thing. At one point, Richard Doty says, in this backlit thing, he says, the thing that amazed me the most was the aliens had this crystal. And I remember this is a big thing in the 80s. I mean, Linda Howe and I and everybody was out chasing this story about the crystal. And the story on UFO Cover-Up Live is they said that you turn the crystal, and in the crystal, they could show you the whole history of the Earth, going right back to the beginning, and that they actually showed the U.S. government the crucifixion of Jesus Christ on this crystal. So that's on this documentary. And so suddenly here's Ron Johnson talking about being in the spirit world with these crystals. And I said, okay, so explain exactly what these crystals are. And he says exactly the same thing. He says, I'm there, and I can look at anything in the history. Like my crystal isn't there yet because I'm not dead, but my mother's crystal is there, and you look at it at an angle, and you can see back all through history, all this kind of stuff. And he said even dogs and cats. So he said you put in your mind what you want, and this crystal just comes out of the table of the dog. And he said he had a dog when he was in California back in the 60s. And the dog just disappeared one day. He had it from birth right till one day it disappeared. And he said in the crystal, he actually saw the fact that the dog had been shot by the neighbor across the street, because the whole history of the dog, and it was like a 3D movie, and they all described the same thing. And if you go to Journey of Souls, which is the whole idea about life between life, where there's 35,000 regressions where they take people into the spirit world between lives, they talk about the same thing. They talk about the crystals. They go into the libraries, they open these books, and it's a 3D thing, and it comes out of a crystal that's in this book. And you look at the crystal at a certain angle, and you can look at all your lives. So that's what I'm into now. I'm looking at these crossovers, and there's like just a million crossovers. You can see all these very similar things. And so when people are talking about aliens, they talk to the people on the ship, and I ask different questions. So, and I've got a lot of people. I only deal basically with experiencers who've been on the ship or interact with the beings. And people will say, we on the ship, what did the alien, what kind of alien did you deal with? Did he probe you? Did it hurt? Were you scared? All these kind of questions. And I basically ask the other question. I say, so, like I said to Ron, one was a reptilian. And I said, oh, so what was he wearing? Oh, he's wearing this cape. I said, he's wearing a cape, like a Batman cape. Yeah, he's wearing a cape with this high collar. And I've heard we did a Nancy Tremaine's book with the reptilian with the cape, and he said it had a medallion around his neck. I said, can you draw the medallion? Oh yeah, because he's a real good artist. So he's going to draw the medallion for me, which you'll find in the spirit world too, in the panel that does the life review. The guy in the middle always wears this medallion. And so you get again this crossover of this bizarre sort of things where I'll say to them, I'll say, okay, was the alien wearing clothes? No. And I'll say, okay, can you tell me, did he have any sex organs? No, I don't think so. And I go, well, isn't that kind of strange? And I said, do you have a belly button? No, I didn't have a belly button. Do you have nipples? No, I didn't have nipples. And then I go, did he have ears? No, I didn't have ears. And I'm going like, if you and I, Dave, were to go through a portal onto another planet, we'd take all those body parts. And so the question is like, why are these body parts missing? And I ask a lot of people, the experience, they'll say, did you ever talk to the alien? Did you ever ask him if he was an alien? And I've got maybe 5 people who did. And you know what the alien says? No, not really. You wouldn't understand. Something like that. No, you wouldn't know. It's not. And so that's the whole thing. Is like, are we actually talking about aliens? And in the ordinary world, you'd say, is very obvious. I mean, it's ET. There's no doubt that it's ET. It's got to be ET. And so it's almost like you take a level, you put it on the ground, and you say, look, the ground is flat. There's the bubble. It's flat. But the more you get away from the level, the more information you get. And that's what I've found. I'm going to do a whole book on this, of all these patterns that are the same in the spirit world, are the same. Or, for example, I'll give you another one. A prime example. Chris Bledsoe. You know Chris Bledsoe. He's going to be speaking at the conference that you're going to in California. So Chris Bledsoe told me this story many years ago, and other people have told this story. Ron Johnson starts telling this story. And I go, wow, that's the same story Chris Bledsoe told. And Ron Johnson's talking about being in the spirit world. The aliens take him into this spirit world, and he sees this in the spirit world. And what he sees in the spirit world is his mother showing him a building. And apparently everybody's got a room in the building. She said, when you come, you'll have a room in this building. And here's your father. And this portal opens up, and he can see his father in this building. He sees his grandparents or whatever. And his mother's physical, and she's moving him around and stuff like that. And so he says, and the weird thing was that the building was a small building, but when you got inside, it was really big. It was way bigger on the inside than it was outside. And as soon as he said that, I go, that's what Chris Bledsoe said about the flying saucer. So I went back just today and I said, Chris, I gave him the actual audio of this Ron Johnson talking. I said, Chris, let me confirm. You told me this before. Isn't that true, that you saw the saucer? So Chris went to the saucer. It was landed on the ground. And he walked in, and it was huge. He said it was like way bigger on the inside than it was on the outside, and it was way longer. And then he looked back outside the craft, and it was the same. It was this sort of small egg-shaped craft. And then he looked inside, and it was this huge thing on the inside. And this is the thing. So one is talking about a flying saucer sighting, and one is talking about being in the spirit world. And it's this really bizarre thing that makes no sense whatsoever. And that's why, like, people say, we got this technology. I say, if you think that we've got technology where you got an object where it's way bigger on the inside than it is outside, give your head a shake. And it almost comes down to maybe Chris Bledsoe is in the spirit world, that this really is not a physical thing. This is something that's happening on a different level. And so that's where I'm sort of moving into 2020. And I've got so many synchronicities. I mean, maybe in the second part, I'll talk about the number of synchronicities that I've got. I've teamed up with a girl because I really don't like conducting interviews. I don't mind doing interviews without people asking the questions, but I really don't like conducting them. And I got a girl out of Toronto who's done a lot of public speaking and is an experiencer and has had some, ayahuasca experiences and stuff like that. So I teamed up with her to do these interviews. I have had a synchronicity with this girl. We had our first conversation January 1st, almost every day. We had just the one we had this morning was, every time I look at it, it's like, nobody's going to believe this story. It's just so weird. Like almost every day I get a synchronicity with this girl, and it's just really, really weird. And it's almost, and if you see those as signals that you're on the right track, to me, it's like everything's just fitting into place. Everything's coming. All the people, you're getting, people appear for interviews, or like this Ron Johnson starts telling me stuff that fits into exactly what I'm doing. And I didn't intend to even ask him about that. So that's where I'm going. More away from, although I still watch the TTSA and all that kind of stuff, I think they're just, they really don't know that much. They're just trying to get money out of the Congress. You need some threat thing. You got to scare the daylights out of everybody, and you get money and you walk out of Congress with a bunch of money. I don't really think they have any sort of understanding of really what's going on. There may be one or two people who know, and they may have some technology and some super black ops thing, but in general, I think the government knows an awful lot less than people think they know. This phenomenon is like mega miles ahead of anything that we've got on this world.
Looking towards 2020, so we got about... Oh, we got a bad echo here for a second here. But looking towards 2020... as we move further into this year, Grant, I mean, the last 2 years have been phenomenal for what has come out regarding UFO research, and it's made people really pick sides on everything that is going on. In just a couple of minutes here before we go to break here, what should we be looking for this year coming up? Is it going to be much the same, or are we going to see the topic kind of die down or shift?
No, there's more stuff coming out. I mean, you got some guys doing some pretty heavy research. You've got, the Australian guys, and you got John Greenwald filing, endless FOIAs. You're seeing more and more of these documents leaking out as to, like this thing with the Skinwalker Ranch. They seem, and Kit Green is making comments, which I had my interaction with him last year through Richard Dolan when I had this leaked document where the alien autopsy document where Kit Green confirmed that the document was real and started talking. He wanted to do an interview with Richard Dolan. And I kept saying to Richard, why is he agreeing to do an interview with you, Richard? And he said, no, he just wants to. And I said, no, Richard, why is he doing an interview with you? He's, like he had to have gotten 600 requests from the government. Like, what the hell are you talking about? Why did you talk to these people? Why did you put this in a document and all this kind of stuff? And so people like Kit Green are sort of talking. And I think you're going to get a lot more of the leaks towards this, but the division is not going to stop. You have the world of separation. It's me versus you. Politics is like that. The UFO world is like that. As I say, in the UFO world, there's no money, so the only currency is ego. And you have these massive egos that are going at each other because that's all you really got.
So with that, can we expect another drop of information like we saw last year with the Wilson documents, or with Harry Reid coming out and saying we got to petition Congress for more money? Is that going to come out this year?
I think you'll see details on what's happening with the Senate and what they're doing behind the scenes and stuff like that. As for leak stuff, I keep encouraging the guy that provided me the stuff to give the other documents. He's got a couple other documents to drop them. He doesn't want to drop them, but he's working on some stuff back there. There may be some documents coming, but they as what happened with the document when we did the Wilson document and the alien autopsy document is it gets divided too, because basically people want to try to take me down or Dolan down, and they realize they're going to get our power if they can take us down, and it just splits the whole thing. It's like people who have no idea what they're talking about, and they sort of like start analyzing the document like, yeah, well, this is wrong in the document, that's wrong in the document, and it always turns that way. It's like you get these two sides, and it divides, and the document floats away. That's why I said to the guy in Australia, James Rigney, I said, you got to drop some more stuff because this is going to die out. And he figured like this would unravel, and it's like every other document. It just gets to a stalemate where half the people believe it and half the people don't, and everybody just goes on to looking for what's next. Have you seen any new UFO videos? And it's a 24/7 news cycle, and people can't stay on the subject. They just keep going, and it's like an entertainment thing for most people, and they're just looking for the next news story because they think the next news story is going to break it, and nobody actually goes and analyzes the stuff you've already got.
Well, that's going to be very interesting to see how it plays out, because I don't know if we can talk the last couple of years. I think the hype around TTSA is starting to die down. I think we're starting to see a lot of split in people, especially, with the Nimitz crowd going to be doing their thing. And there's a crowd that still doesn't believe TTSA, and they're doing their thing. I think John Greenwald and people along those lines, Tim McMillan, yourself, along those lines. I think it's going to be very interesting to see how this absolutely plays out. Grant, I'm going to get you to hold on. We're going to go to break here. More UFOs 2020 with Grant Cameron coming up on Spaced Out Radio.
Hey, space travelers, this is John Resig, founder of the CHIVE and CHIVE Charities. If you know anything about our website, you know we like to do things a little differently. We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly toward life-improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor with Spaced Out Radio's official charity, CHIVE Charities, just go to chivecharities.org/donate.
From the heartlands of Canada to beards around the world, we know how to take care of you. Fill your follicles with the Mighty Moose Beard Oil. All our oils and balms are handmade and 100% natural ingredients because we care about your beard. And hey, use the promo code SOR2019 and get your Mighty Moose Beard Oil today. You can check us out on our website, mightymoosebeard.com.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Thal, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know little brother is watching.
We're adding to the entertainment online for Spaced Out Radio. I'm Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out Cryptid Tales, where I will take you on a journey into some of the strangest legends and lore from around the world, relaying the stories to you of the strange creatures and experiences that people have had throughout time. You can find Cryptid Tales at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio, and while you're there, don't forget to check out our free archives and leave a comment. See you there.
Move over, brother, and let me own Saturday night.
This is Rich Giordano, and I'm inviting you to tune on in to Spaced Out Saturdays starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, 12 a.m. Eastern, where I'm going to bust open the lids on everything paranormal. Why? Because we want answers, and I'm the guy who's going to deliver those answers to you. Join the chat rooms, and we'll see you this Saturday. Just be there. No, really.
Hey everybody, the SOR Space Travelers is open. For just $5 a month, you can hang out with Dave and our crew privately in our members-only section. With your signing, you'll receive newsletters on what's going on with Spaced Out Radio. You'll have direct contact with the host during the show in our chat, live streaming videos, and a great forum for your posts and more. Become a space traveler now at spacedoutradio.com.
You wanted new SOR gear, and now you can have it. The SOR Vault is fully stocked with t-shirts, hats, hoodies, mugs, and everything in between, with great logos for you to choose from. So head on over to spacedoutradio.com, click on the SOR Vault, and go shopping. Pricing is quite affordable, and you can look good representing your favorite show. So go to our website and pick up your new SOR wear at the SOR Vault today.
Hello everyone. This is Ryan Stacy from the Experiencer Support Association, otherwise known as TESA. We're glad to team up with Spaced Out Radio to help investigate your experiences on the SOR Sightlines Report. Together, we'll investigate the strange sightings and occurrences you've had. We're looking for answers just like you. So fill out a Sightlines report on the Spaced Out Radio website and let's figure out what's going on together.
If you like it hot, real hot, then heat up your meals with Bumblefoot hot sauce.
Get your Bumblefoot hot sauce today. The sauce, Bumblicious, and the 4 million Scoville unit Bumble. We're going in hot, real hot, coming out even hotter.
Keep the milk nearby and tantalize your taste buds tonight.
Bumblefoot hot sauce, available now at kajans.com.
Cold drinks, great food, and the best music in Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is the place to be, open until 2 a.m. nightly. Everything on the menu starts at just $6.95. Who serves food that cheap anymore? At the Moose, you'll never know who you'll run into. Rock stars, actors, athletes. It's the place everyone wants to be. So join us at the Moose Vancouver, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Hello, Space Travelers. It's me again, Carl. Don't forget to join the Space Travelers Club for just $5 a month and follow Spaced Out Radio on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Our Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. Our Facebook page is Spaced Out Radio Show. Our archives are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Come woo it up with Spaced Out Radio today. Bye!
Are you looking for great advertising value for your company? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. We have a multitude of places to get your name out there, including commercial ads during the show, special promotions, and banners on our website. Our audience is proven to support the companies that support our show. We can make your budget work for you. So for more information, please contact us at sales@spacedoutradio.com.
At spacedoutradio.com, we are keeping you up to date on all the news with the SOR Newswire. Captain Shirk leads the team that is bringing you the news of the day and exclusive stories on everything paranormal and supernatural. It's free to read, it's updated daily, and it's right there for you. The SOR Newswire is a one-stop shop for the news of the day. Check it out at spacedoutradio.com today.
Welcome back to the second half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. Great to have you with us. Reminder that if you've missed portions of this show or others, you can check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com that has a plethora of features for you. Check them on out while you're listening to the show. Grant Cameron is here. We're talking UFOs 2020 as we look towards what will happen over the next 11 months in this field. Will it be active? Will it be, let's say, controversial? Or will it just go back into the closet right where it belongs? Grant, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Dave.
I know you're pulling away from the field because you have other aspects that you want to check out, more on a consciousness type level with these craft. I mean, I think it's a new niche that is going to really explode here over the next little while. And I can understand why you want to be at the forefront of that. But there is a giant crowd of people that you are kind of stepping away from to try and find this information. When you look back on that crowd now, that UFO crowd that is so divided, so hasty, so vile at times on social media especially, how are you looking at the crowd from an outside perspective now?
Well, I've for a while I've seen them that, as I pointed out a little bit before the break, vast majority of people, I don't know, it's pretty high, is got to be 90%, are just into this for entertainment. Because in the early 20th or 19th century, we had mediums, and you would have seances. People do that for entertainment, and a lot of people are doing it for entertainment. For example, like CE5s. And I had a couple of close encounters when it was 1975. And so people say, well, we're going to do CE5s. They're going to have this CE5 event, and I just go like, no, I don't want it. Like, there's a light in the sky. Like, what? This is a waste of time. And a lot of people are into the CE5. They want to see something. It's like entertainment, or they're chasing videos, which is about the worst thing you can do, because the video is either too good or it's really bad. And how do you prove anything? You can always take the position that it's fake, it's wrong, or whatever. And so most people, I have empathy for them, that they're doing what they think is right. But I've been there, and I know it's almost like what's the definition of insanity? You do the same thing over and over again, assuming you're going to come to a different conclusion. What people are doing in the UFO field, the vast majority of people, is exactly what we were doing in 1947. We're trying to prove that UFOs exist. I mean, they exist. Let's get over it. I mean, and I have the advantage that I was pretty close. So I don't have I've never had any doubt. I've never really tried to prove UFOs exist to my friends and relatives, because I know people who don't believe aren't going to believe. But if you're in the field and you're still doing the UFO sighting thing and the analysis of videos and all this kind of stuff, and trying to prove to the American public that Nimitz was real, or that there was something there, it's what we were doing in 1947. And we didn't get anything then, and we're not going to get anywhere with it now. Because you can always be skeptical and say, there's not a shred of evidence to prove that there's any truth to this. It's almost like the situation with the impeachment, where two groups of people hear the same evidence and have entirely different opinions as to what's going on. And people dig themselves into a corner in politics, and they do the same thing in the UFO field, where these camps form, and then it's like you're attacking my guy, and it becomes very sort of almost like messianic, where you have that's where I wrote in Managing Magic. I talked about the 5 messiahs. That's what we do. Because we're lazy and we really don't want to do the research, we're looking for somebody who's got the answers. So, like, who's the messiah? Is it Stephen Greer? Is it Tom DeLonge? Is it Bill Moore? And we have had these people, and somebody, starts down a road and everything. So this guy's got the answers. This is the coolest guy. He's got everything. He knows what's going on, and everybody follows him, and everybody, starts a big parade. And then suddenly you find out the guy did something, and everybody does something stupid. I mean, he got divorced. He ran around with a girl, or, whatever story. And then it's like, I knew he wasn't the Messiah. And everybody just sort of dumps him, and they start looking for the next Messiah. And so we're just doing the same thing over and over and over again all the time. And the main problem, I think, is people are still in this world that it's a material phenomenon, that this is nuts and bolts, that there's going to be technology, that we're going to pull an engine out of this thing, and we're going to be able to drive our SUVs for free, and it's all going to be great. And then I try to remind people all energy is free. I mean, the sun doesn't charge for its energy. All energy is free. But getting it from the free energy to the other end, you're going to have all sorts of middlemen, and they're going to it's going to be the same game as any other type of energy. But people have this materialistic thing where we're going to understand there's life on other planets, and we're going to have this technology and stuff. And when I was looking at it, when I started to see this, especially when I heard like Eric Davis say, we shut the program down in 1989. We couldn't figure out anything about what was going on. And this is what I was hearing. And you got this in this Wilson leak document where they said that this high-level guy gets this briefing, and he says, no abductions, which is another thing I'm going to take a look at. No abductions, and there's no nobody has the technology. We don't understand what's going on. And you go back, and then so I remember, because I've been in it a long time, 1982, Kate Green, Hal Puthoff, and Jacques Vallée. So you've got basically the same people that are in TTSA and are surrounding TTSA back in 1982 do what's called the core story. They sit in a Denny's restaurant and they say, okay, there's a lot of stories running around the UFO community. What do we know for sure? And they come up with what was called the core story. We are being visited by some sort of intelligence. There has been a crash. We've got some hardware, and we haven't back-engineered anything. We're having a real hard time back-engineering. That's the same story as now. And so when I came across my download experience, which showed me this consciousness connection through Dr. Eric Walker at Penn State University, what the Canadian government said, and what Ben Rich said, this thing that consciousness is how this thing works, and ESP, and you've got to understand this stuff. I started down that road, and then when I started studying the Tom DeLonge thing when it first came out, and people got to remember, I mean, people are yakking about, Tom DeLonge discovered anything. You got to remember, when I wrote Managing Magic, I identified Tom DeLonge, I identified Jim Semivan, and I said basically what was going to happen 8 months before he ever went public with TTSA. And so when he first was going, he had this meeting at Lockheed. And he has the three guys. One was Robert Weiss, the head. Yeah, I don't know who the second guy was, but the third guy was the head scientist. And that's when the head scientist says, Tom DeLonge mentions consciousness, and the guy says, now you're talking. And that's all the guy would talk about for 45 minutes was this idea that it was consciousness. And that confirmed to me that, yes, there are people who know it's consciousness. But in discussions like I've had with Sinead, this girl who's helping me with these interviews, I said to her, because she's just new, she just sort of got thrown in. The beings just sort of threw her in this thing in June. She sort of got awakened really hard and fast. And I said to her, you got to realize that there's you, me, and maybe 5 other people who actually, I think, understand what's really going on. Everybody else is still trying to prove UFOs. They're trying to get technology. They don't understand what consciousness is really all about, what the bottom line of this thing is, and that there's very few people that know. You may think everybody understands what you're talking about. So that's where I moved, and once I got to the consciousness thing, everything started to come together, and it started to make sense. And especially if you look at the data from the people who actually have the contact, where you have, these, 80%, say they've had out-of-body experiences, 37% say they've had near-death experiences, 50% said they've been healed, 50% say they can heal other people, and you get these bizarre things that nobody's really looking at. It's this sort of the paranormal aspect of the UFO thing, where everybody thinks that's different, it's poltergeist, it's not the same thing. I maintain, and this is I'm going to bring out in the book Contact Modalis, it's all the same thing. We're just parsing it. We're putting it under different names. And the beings, I'm sort of, the hypotheses I've got is like in 1890s, you had the ships. And people don't realize this because a lot of people just got in it. They don't realize the patterns. When you've been in it as long as I do, you realize that what happened in the old days doesn't happen anymore, and what happens now didn't happen in the old days. That it's almost like they're turning the pages of a book, and the phenomena keeps changing. 1890s, you've got wooden ships with giant propellers on them, and guys hanging down off ropes. And the interactions that they had with these beings, and from this big airship wave in the United States, the beings that they were like human type beings, but they had weird clothes, which is Men in Black. It's the same story. 1890, they're doing the Men in Black thing, and they said they were from Mars. So are they from Mars? I mean, now nobody believes they're from Mars or Venus or stuff like that, and yet. That's what we believed. And then it goes along, and then suddenly you get the Foo Fighters in World War II, and then they last for about 2 or 3 years, and they go away, and there's no more Foo Fighters. Then the Green Fireballs start, and they're around all the nuclear activities, the plutonium for refinement and stuff like that. And then the Green Fireballs go away, and then suddenly we detonate the hydrogen bomb, and suddenly Adamski meets these beings that are human-type beings, and then you come along with the Greys. And I even make a joke when I do this ET thing. I say, you realize the Greys. I mean, if you take the Greys, so I take the Greys and all the people that have actually drawn a Grey, and you take Betty and Barney Hill, and it's like all these red flags that nobody picks on. So Betty and Barney Hill are talking about these Greys, the first Greys, 1961. I maintain, and I will maintain till someone shows me, there was no Greys before 1961, before Betty and Barney Hill. But the Greys that they had were wearing hats. So what? We got on Zeta Reticuli, we got a baseball team there. I mean, it's like a red flag. They're wearing hats. Like, hello. It's like the reptilian wearing a Batman cape. And it's like, this is weird stuff. It's like, it's almost like there's a story that's told by Dr. Michael Newton, who talks about, he's the guy who invented this thing, Life Between Life. He was a clinical psychologist, did 7,000 regressions, these 3-hour regressions where he takes people, lets them die in the last life and takes them into the spirit world and stuff like that. And he has this minister, and this is sort of goes to what I think is going on in the UFO community. He has this minister comes in, he's a fire and brimstone guy, and he's getting a reading or whatever, and suddenly in the middle of this reading, this regression thing, he starts yelling out, he says, "The devil's here!" And Newton says, "What do you mean, devil's here?" He says, "He's right here. He's in the room." And then Newton says, "He's in the room? Where? I can't see him. Where is he? He's right in front of you." And this guy's flipping out. And he says, "The devil's there." And Newton says, "Well, describe him. Like, what's he look like?" And he's got this leathery skin, and he's describing the devil. And then Newton says, "Well, what's he got in his lower half? I mean, you described the top. What about the lower?" And he said, "Oh, it's kind of like wispy. It's like sort of like smoke." And then Newton says, "Take a closer look. Who is it really?" And then the guy looks and goes, "Oh, it's my soul guide. And he's playing a game with me because I'm preaching fire and brimstone, and he's teaching me a lesson." And it's that idea that that's what I say now to people in the UFO community. When you look at the aliens, take a closer look. Who is it really? Because when you look at the Greys, and I actually have a PowerPoint. I haven't shown it anywhere yet, but I have a PowerPoint where I take, like Betty Andreasen's Grey, I take Sherry Wild's Grey, I take all the different Greys that people have, and I flip them one on top of another. I go one. There's none that even look even close to each other. They're all, and people say, oh, they draw them different or whatever, but some have ridges, some have big eyes, some have smaller eyes, some have pupils, and you start to see this thing that we are part of it. It's almost like they're manifesting, like when my father died. His father comes to him 2 days before he dies. And so he comes to help him across or, make him feel better or whatever. And my father is just like a real skeptical guy. When my mother says, "Well, what did your father have to say?" "He was just here. That's all you need to know." And so why does he come as if he's lived multiple lives, why does he come as my grandfather? Because if he came as anything else, my father wouldn't recognize. And so because spirits can come across and manifest as physical beings, then it's the same thing. The beings can come across, and that's what they tell people. We can appear as whatever we want to appear. Whatever you think, that's what we go into your mind, we check your mind, and that's what we appear as. And it's the same thing that's happening in the spirit world, where you can get in the physical mediumship thing. If you've ever watched the Skull Experiment, the stuff out of Great Britain in the 1990s,
yes,
it's the most amazing stuff. Now that guy went to Spain. I can't remember his name. His name is escaping me. But he went to Spain, and he says he gets to Spain, and they couldn't make any contact anymore. It sort of broke off, and then suddenly it came again, and suddenly Blue appears, and Blue is an alien. He's like a gray, but he's blue. And he starts, and they do this thing where they use mirrors to shoot a film camera, and they get the mirrors to go back into the camera, so it's shooting into its own lens. And they start picking up all these beings and on video. And one is this blue. And blue actually comes into these mediumship things. And he takes people's hands and puts them on his head to prove that he's physical. So you have this. For years they did the spirit thing where they're bringing across spirits and talking to people's dead relatives or whatever. And suddenly the alien appears in the middle of this thing. And it's almost like the hint. It's like they're coming out of that world, almost like Bashar, the famous channeler, said, "We come to you in your dreams because now you're in our world." And so that's what I think. I think it's all going to be the same thing. It's just in the 1890s, they had to appear as like human type beings who are coming from Mars. And as we progress, the beings change because I've gone through this. I said, well, when are the Greys? The Greys didn't appear before 61. And even the reptilians, I went to David Chase, who draws. A lot of people go to him to have aliens drawn. So I said, you're an expert on reptilians. So when did the reptilians appear? And he said, well, it's like 1990s. But he said there was a case in 1988. And you start looking, there was no reptilians. They just sort of popped on the scene. And it's like, what were they missing, or they didn't find the planet or something? And you get it. And now suddenly everybody's into reptilians, and the mantids appeared. And the human type aliens of the 1950s disappeared. And, you have crop circles start. And then you have the ground traces where people are talking, like people will do investigations. So we have, you have your MUFON teams, and they have all this stuff for analyzing ground samples and stuff. There has not been a ground trace case for 20 years at least. I mean, it doesn't happen. When I was in the 70s, they were all over the place. The thing with land, it would burn out the crop, would leave these tripod marks like the Rendlesham Forest. And to me, it's like they're just playing this game where they just keep changing whatever they appear as. And we're just chasing it around, and they're just leading us by the nose to go from one phenomena to another. And people don't realize because they've been in it for such a short time, or they're so focused on the next case. And that's one of the big problems that I think is that people are always looking for the next case to be the case that's going to break it. And they don't realize that that's the simplest way to get set up, because everybody's looking for the new video. So as soon as there's a new video that's a hoax, everybody jumps on it, and then someone says, oh, it's a hoax, and everybody runs for the hills and waits for the next video. And all that's what we're doing is we're just waiting for the next case. We're not looking back. We're not looking at the material we already got. We're not looking at weird things like why did the alien autopsy video not, you look at it, and why does it not have a belly button? Even if you're hoaxing it, if you're going to hoax it, why would you not put a belly button on it? Why would you not have the ears on it? Why would you have all these things that are very common in UFO sightings? When you start talking to the people who are actually encountering it, numerous people will say, no, there was no sex organs. No, there was, or I say, like, for example, Betty Andreasen, I asked her husband, their first experience was 1946. So I said, Bob, you've seen this being since 1946, correct? He said, yeah. I said, did you ever get any older? And he said, no, but aliens live a long time. And I asked David Chase the same thing. He said, well, yeah, no, they don't, the reptilians don't get any older, but then snakes always look the same age. So people have this justification, but that's one of the common things you're going to find is that people like Ron Johnson, he's had the beings since the 1960s. It never got any older. So we get older, the hybrids get older. So why is the alien not getting older? Maybe it's not an alien. Maybe it's portraying itself as an alien. And that's where I'm getting. I'm starting to go into this kind of stuff where it's becoming more consciousness, less ET, and I think I'm getting the answers as to what it is, but I don't think anybody's going to pay attention. People are still vetted to a materialistic world. If you can't build an iPhone, we're not interested in any of your theories. And they want physical, they want technology, they want because that's where the money is, and they want either Santa Claus, who's going to come and give us an engine, or an enemy that we can fight and get big defense budgets and make some money off the defense industry. But in terms of any consciousness or understanding why they're here or what the message is, there is not many people who are really interested in that aspect of the phenomenon.
Grant, we've got about 4 minutes here before we got to go to break at the top of the hour on Spaced Out Radio here. And with everything that's going on and the way you see things shifting, and you are now concentrating on the way things are happening with the aliens and what they're all about, are we being visited from another planet? Is this interdimensional? Is it ultra-terrestrial, as Alan Greenfield used to talk about and still does?
Yeah. Well, yeah, moving more away from the extraterrestrial, the idea that they're coming across these vast distances. And then I thought they were coming through the portals. But the thing was the missing body parts, which makes it seem really weird. And there's got to be, I bet you there'll be 100 connections to the spirit world where I can find something that people's talking about in the UFO field, and I'll find exactly the same story in the spirit world. And so the question is, is it an ET that's playing in the spirit world, or is it all sort of the fact that we're in a conscious universe where it's all one thing? We think that there's us, and then there's the spirit world, and then there's other planets, and then there's interdimensions and stuff, and it's just all one thing. It's all made out of consciousness. That's the ground of the thing, and it's the accessing the field. So because we have left brains and we're rational analytical and it's based on fear, our left brains shut us off from that world. It's almost like the embargo. We're not allowed. And once you understand that everything's one, everything's conscious, then you can get off the planet. But we're still in the world where we believe it's us versus them, and just this really high material. So if you get into interdimension, which I think is going to be part of this, that's part of it. But again, it comes down to you're using one unexplained to explain another unexplained. So if you're talking like multi-universes or multi-dimensions or whatever, we really don't know much about that. I think you got to go with trying to find out what are the aliens telling people, and trying to get people actually tell people. Like, next time you see him, can you ask him, like, is he an alien? Where's he from? And go that route of actually analyzing the material we already got. We do have a lot of material on beings, people talking to beings, people getting messages from beings, and nobody's paying attention to the experiencers. And I've said for years and years and years, you are not going to solve this phenomena. Absolutely not going to solve it unless you talk to the experiencers. You cannot do it with medals, with photographs, with videos or whatever. All you're going to prove is that, yes, there is a phenomena and it's probably not from this planet, but you are not going to understand where they're from, what the message is by looking at metal or videos or anything. You've got to talk to the people who are interacting with the phenomena, and that's what they're doing. That's where the whole Kit Green study is. There's 8 people, and we can get into this. Jim Peniston wrote this book where he said, when Kit Green came, I'm going to find out what the heck you're doing, man. And he drilled Kit Green to find out what he's doing with the money, with Bigelow's money. What are they doing? And they're working with experiencers, and that's what they should be doing. It's just their aspect is looking at it from the military perspective. I'm looking at it as to the message of why they're here and what we can learn from them.
With about 45 seconds to go, is that even possible to figure that equation out?
Well, yeah, I think so. Yeah, if you start looking at the data, you start seeing, to me, the absolute number one message is oneness. It's the idea you have to realize you are part of your planet. That's where these ecological things are shown to people. You are connected to your planet. What you do affects your planet. What you dump stuff in the river, it affects it. And you affect the rest of the universe. And we are all one. We are the aliens. The aliens are us. There is no separation. It's all the same thing. And so that's the number one message. And there's no doubt about that. Love is the basis of the universe, as strange as that sounds. Psychedelic people will tell you that. ET people who talk to the aliens will tell you that. So, yeah, I think, and I'll put the messages down that I think the people are getting, but you see very common messages. People think that it's all over the map. It's not. There's some very definite things that people are being told. It's very striking when you look at the free survey and you start to see the patterns that form out of 3,200 experiencers.
Absolutely. Grant Cameron, our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We're going to get into Kit Green's study when we come back. Maybe we'll touch on the free experiencers as well. Lots more coming with Grant in Hour 2 of Spaced Out Radio next.
A little bit of science, a little bit of skepticism. Add a dash of snark and you have the makings of Spaced Out Sundays with me, Everett Thielen. Together we will look into the reality of the paranormal with an open eye and rational thought. Oh, did I mention there'll be plenty of woo as well? Your time spent with Spaced Out Sundays will make the night even better. The chat rooms are open, 9:06 p.m. Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there, this is Geraldine Orozco from San Francisco's Bay Area Meditation. I invite you to join me the first Tuesday of every month with Dave Scott for Spaced Out Radio's The Spiritual You. In this fast-paced world we live in, it's time for you to take some time for you. We'll cover every possible subject from powerful meditation to healing techniques to your own intuition and spirituality. So come join us for The Spiritual You.
Hi, this is Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel where we store all of the SOR show archives for free. And as an added bonus, every 2 weeks I'm posting brand new content on Cryptid Tales, where I will get into some of the spookier legends and folklore from around the world and tell the stories that go with them. Find us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio and check out Cryptid Tales today. Drop a comment and let me know what you want to hear. See you there.
I'm feeling a little spicy tonight. What to do? What to do?
Why not get Bumblefoot?
4 million Scoville units of pure hard rock. Bumblefoot hot sauces come in 3 flavors. The burning Bumble. Tone it down a bit with Bumblicious and throw the sauce on everything.
Spice it up. Bumble me, baby. Bumblefoot hot sauce. Get it today at kajans.com.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
Hello, space travelers. It's me again, Carl. Don't forget to join the Space Travelers Club for just $5 a month. And follow Spaced Out Radio on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Our Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. Our Facebook page is Spaced Out Radio Show. Our archives are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Come woo it up with Spaced Out Radio today. Bye!
We are scouring the world for the most intriguing stories of your day. Take the time to read up on the SOR Newswire, where our team, led by Captain Shirk, will deliver to you some of the best paranormal and supernatural news, along with some stories that will blow your mind from the weird to the wacky. It's the news outside the news that piques interest, and that's what we're looking to deliver to you. The SOR Newswire, only at spacedoutradio.com.
The SOR Vault is open for business, and do we have some cool swag for you to pick up? All you have to do is head over to our website and click on the SOR Vault. You have a variety of cool logos to choose from, and put them on anything you want. T-shirts, hoodies, hats, coffee mugs, you name it, we can get it to you. So do your shopping by supporting the store you love. Get your Spaced Out Radio swag at the SOR Vault today.
We all know on Spaced Out Radio we love a good beard and mustache, so why not take care of your facial hair with Mighty Moose Beard Oil? Made in Canada, we're taking care of beards and stashes around the world. We use 100% natural ingredients with our oils and balms to make your whiskers feel silky smooth. Use promo code SOR2019 at MightyMooseBeard.com today.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Looking for creative ways to get your company out in the public? How about advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Our sales department is waiting to hear from you, and we can work around any budget. From commercial spots to banners to special promotions, there are many opportunities to get your name and product out to our SOR listeners. For a price guide and more information, please contact us at sales@spacedoutradio.com.
The party is always on at the Moose Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is where you want to be when visiting Canada's West Coast. Open until 2 a.m. nightly, the Moose cranks up the rock while serving some of the best-rated food in the city. The menu starts at $6.95. Why party anywhere else in Vancouver when the Moose is right there? Get your horns up and rock with the Moose, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Are you an experiencer of something strange that can't be explained? Do you want help finding out what's going on? I'm Ryan Stacy, head of the Experiencer Support Association, otherwise known as TESA. We've teamed up with Spaced Out Radio to investigate cases filled out in the SOR Sightlines report. We are independent and there's no cost to what we do. All we need is your experience. Let's find out what's happening together on the SOR Sightlines report.
For the price of 1 cup of coffee a month, you can become an SOR Space Traveler. The Space Travelers Club is a place where you can interact with other listeners, either live during the show or on our great forum. We want your stories, pictures, comments, and ideas. You'll get live video streams, exclusive content, and be a part of our newsletter. Stay in touch with everything SOR. The Space Travelers Club is just $5 a month at spacedoutradio.com.
Get your horns up with me on Spaced Out Radio. This is Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Come tune in to SOR where you can hear me rock out with Little Brother Is Watching, the official theme song of Spaced Out Radio. And then come on over to bumblefoot.com where you can find out about my tour schedule, my music, and everything else. Bumblefoot.com keeps you up to date on what I'm doing and the best way to stay in touch with my music and music camps. Sign up for my newsletter at bumblefoot.com and remember, Little Brother Is Watching.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Hour 2 of Spaced Out Radio is underway tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Appreciate you tuning on in. We welcome back everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates, KDNF AM 1560 in Dangerfield, Texas, UPRN 107.7 FM in New Orleans, KZFX 93.7 FM in Ridgecrest, California, WQEE 99.1 FM in Newnan, Georgia, and KDUN AM 1030 in Reedsport, Oregon. On the digital side, we're proud to broadcast on Kingdom of Nye Radio and Revolution Radio. Remember, you can check out all of our archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. They are free for you. Just hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club, Ailurophilia. Ailurophilia is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets a password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, do a little shopping at the SOR Vault, grab a great book from We Read the Night. Join the Space Travelers for $5 a month, and Captain Shirk has all your news up to date with the SOR Newswire. Grant Cameron is here to talk UFOs 2020, the direction that the field is going, the way he is going. And Grant, right before the break, you were talking about Kit Green and this study that he was doing on people who have had ET contact or some sort of extraterrestrial, ultra-terrestrial type being. Let's go deep into this because I think this is where we're going in 2020.
Yeah. Well, Kit has, you got to remember with Kit and with Hal, and I've sort of known these guys. I mean, I haven't known Kit, but I've known of him all these years. Hal I've known sort of, and Eric Davis, and a lot of them I've interacted with over the years. And what you got to remember is that these guys are, people have them as the evil government, whatever. They're just guys who are trying to figure it out. I mean, they like Kit Green had the encounter with Uri Geller in the early 1970s, where Uri does this reading where he's looking at this book and Uri's telling him what's on the book, and he's like hits it right to the, and he's sort of blown out of the water, and he runs the remote viewing program, and he gets into all the weird stuff in the remote viewing program. They have Uri Geller's there, and they have these apport things appearing and ice cream and falling out of the ceiling of the lab, and so they have all this weird stuff going on. So so Hal Puthoff and Kit Green, because of the remote viewing program, had a top secret SCI sort of classification. These two guys have had, perhaps they may have the longest held top secret SCI security clearances in the country. And Kit Green is important because Kit Green is, I think they call him an open employee. So he can basically talk about whatever he wants. And my first encounter with Kit Green was back when I'm chasing Dr. Eric Walker. So we went after the Canadians to start. And the Canadians were told, they wrote the top secret memo, which said, we were told by American officials flying saucers exist. It's the most highly classified subject in the United States. The subject is of tremendous significance to the Americans. There's a small group headed by Dr. Vannevar Bush who are working to try to figure out what's going on, and there may be mental phenomena involved. So this is 1950 November, the Canadians. And when we tried to figure out who was giving the material to the Canadians, who these American officials were, we came across Dr. Robert Sarbacher, who said there was a briefing, there was a crash in the West, which may have been Roswell. 1950, they had some briefings at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. They were bringing in all the top scientists like von Braun, von Neumann. Sarbacher was invited. Dr. Eric Walker was invited. And he identified Dr. Eric Walker as being one of the people that we had been to all these meetings. So we started chasing Dr. Eric Walker. And I sort of made it public, and I was trying to get help from Stanton Friedman was one I was trying to get help from, and Bill Moore, who was like the Tom DeLonge of the 1980s. So Stan phoned him twice, and he basically played games with Stan on the phone and then hung up the phone on Stan. And Stan couldn't get anything. So Stan says, he may know something, but you're wasting your time. I mean, if you won't talk to me, he's not talking to you. Forget it, And it was that attitude. But then Bill Moore said, well, I really don't believe he's who you think he is, but I'm going to send a friend of mine to go and visit him. And he sends Kit Green. He calls him the BJ, which is Blue Jay, which is the Avery name for Kit Green. So this happens in about 1990. He sends Kit Green, and Kit Green tells the story. It's actually told, and I would recommend to people, if you want some good books that are out right now that just sort of like expose what's actually been going on. You look at Jacques Vallée's, I don't know if you've done a story on this yet, but Jacques Vallée's Forbidden Science, Volume 3 and Volume 4. Jacques Vallée actually writes in the sort of the foreword to the book or the introduction of the book, like, what good does it do if you, if you die and you really didn't tell what you knew? And so he's opening up, and he basically, as I describe it, he takes the bus, and he basically drives over everybody with the bus. He just tells everything that happened, like how Bob Bigelow started NIDS, which is a bizarre story, how he started NIDS. And he tells all the stuff, all this stuff on Kit Green. There's like maybe 50 references on Kit Green, conversations with Kit Green, conversations with Art Lundahl, who was the guy before Kit Green that ran the weird desk of the CIA. And Vallée just opens up about all this stuff. So anyway, in there, and when it happened, I knew that Kit Green was going. But this is what happens with the Avery. I sort of call them like MJ12 2.0. So you could get MJ12, and they got it all figured. They got some stuff figured out, but they're never going to tell you what's going on. I mean, it's like they're going to build weapons or whatever they're going to do with it. I don't know. And then you get these guys like Kit Green who have this encounter with Uri Geller in the remote viewing program and start talking to Hal Puthoff, who's working on UFOs, and he sort of gets dragged into this whole thing. And he's, of course, trying to figure it out. He's trying to figure it out for himself because he's interested, and he's an open employee, so he has a lot of access. He actually goes to Dr. Eric Walker. So he's sent in by Bill Moore in about 1990, and he has this letter that basically says, I have authorization to talk to you about anything I want. So he goes in to talk to Dr. Eric Walker, and Walker says, why do you want to know? And then Kit Green, or why do you want to know, and why do you want this stuff made public? So Kit Green gives him some answers, and he says, according to the Jacques Vallée's version of it, in this Forbidden Science, I think Volume 4, he talks about it. And he said, Walker, he said, whatever answer I gave, it apparently was the wrong answer, because he basically that was it. He shut up. And he said, unless you've got a letter from the President of the United States, I'm not telling you anything. And I will go check the letter to make sure it comes from the President of the United States. And basically throws Kit Green out of the office. And so Kit Green, that's how I sort of met Kit Green. And I didn't know what I heard rumors what had happened in the office, but it wasn't until Jacques Vallée's book that came out like this year or last year when I suddenly discovered I was actually set this thing up. It was because of my research, and nobody told me. So they used my research. They sent someone in to investigate. And the other thing I found out was that Hal Puthoff had gone to Kit Green as well. And he went with all his ideas about the 0-point energy field and all this sort of stuff. And he was dealing with Walker too, but he didn't tell me. I didn't discover that either, that they had actually gone and used my indication that this guy knew what was going on, and we're talking to him. So Kid Green has, for all these years, has been very interested, and he's a physiologist, so he's interested in the brain aspect of this whole thing. And he supposedly is the guy that's briefed a number of presidents. He actually, in one interview, he's identified by a different name, but he says, I've talked to a number of presidents about this, and apparently they don't have the need to know. And so he's this high-level guy that's always been rumored to run the Weird Desk. So comes up to the Tom DeLonge days, and I hear this rumor from a biology guy, a PhD, I think at Wayne State University, where Kit Green is stationed. And he has dinner with Kit Green every once in a while. And so he heard me talking about Kit Green during a lecture, and he came up to me after and he said, can I meet with you privately? So I said, yeah, okay. So we went for a meeting in a room or whatever, and he said, I just want to let you know, I know Kit Green. I have dinner with him all the time, and he started telling me some stuff that him and Kit Green had talked about. And they're usually talking about genetics and stuff like that, really not UFO stuff. But he said, he told me he was running this study. And at that point, I think it was 2015, he told me the story. He had 40 people in the study, and he was studying people who were UFO experiencers. And so I knew about this experiment. Now everybody knows they're running this experiment they're doing the DNA, and they're doing the MRIs of the brain, and the caudate, putamen, and all this kind of stuff. All these articles that have come out about this. But I knew back in 2015 they were doing this. But then they only have 40 people, and they're all military people, which gives you the indication that the military is backing this. The money is the military. And the reason you know that is because they're using military people. They get the military records. They can actually access the military records without anybody's permission. The government finances it, and they give you the records. So it's all military people in this program. Now I think the last, when Gary Nolan put it on an article, I said there was 105 people. And they're claiming these are people who are injured. So the next thing that sort of happened, I'm following this thing and trying to figure out what he's doing and stuff like that, and realizing he was just a guy who was trying to figure this thing out, and that he had all these high-level contacts, Hal Puthoff and Nolan and John Alexander, and they're and they share stuff. So that's the idea you got to realize. It's like MJ12 2.0. They're all sharing stuff with, and at one point I was sort of in on one of their email exchanges, and I guarantee you they're like a mile ahead of you. I mean, they're talking about stuff that you've never even heard about before, because they've got the money, Bigelow's money. They're investigating all this stuff. They've got intelligence contacts and all this kind of stuff. And so as it went along, suddenly someone sent me a tape of Kit Green talking to an intuitive. And this is where I say you got to get away from the nuts and bolts nonsense and realize that, if you don't look at this other stuff, you're never going to get anywhere. You're just redoing 1947 over and over again. Like, let's look at a UFO sighting. Is it a plane? Is it a bird? Is it, whatever? Is it a legitimate photograph? And just cycle the same thing over and over again. He gets this intuitive, and I'm going like, wow. I mean, he's dealing with an intuitive. And on the tape, this is about a 45-minute tape, and I'm told it's Kit Green. I'm not sure for sure, but Kit Green is asking this woman questions. He's saying, okay, who are we dealing with? And it's almost like they've given these people like remote viewing target numbers. Like certain people are experiencers, and he's asking this intuitive, okay, who are they? Who is this person? And he says this woman's 95% accurate. This is Kit Green. This is this top CIA guy. He's saying this woman's 95% accurate. And at one point, she starts talking about portals. She says, off the coast of California, off Catalina Island, which is where Nimitz occurred, she says there's a fourth dimensional portal off the coast of California. And I'm going like, wow, this is like, because you think, okay, they're doing straight, nuts and bolts research. Let's look at metals and stuff like that. And here he is. He's dealing with an intuitive, which is exactly what I say you got to do. You got to realize that a lot of the experiencers are interacting with the beings. Like John Burroughs supposedly channeled when he had his regression thing. He started to channel. And that's the thing, is these people have got these weird contacts where you can tap in and talk to the beings. And so I got this tape, and I actually contacted John Burroughs. I said, John, I got this tape, 45 minutes of this bizarre conversation where Kit's saying, stop, okay, this. And he's asking her questions, and it's very organized where he's talking to her, and she's answering all these questions. And so he said, no, Kit, no, he doesn't have that, because he had gotten John Burroughs' DNA. So I sent the tape to John, and within about an hour and a half, John was back to me. He said, "It is Kit Green." I contacted him. He said, "Yeah, that's him." And all Kit Green would say is, the client leaked the tape, and legally I can't talk about it. But I'm telling you, this is like space, like Star Trek stuff on this tape. It's like nothing you've ever heard before. It's just really weird stuff, almost like what I'm into, the consciousness thing, using an intuitive and portals and all this kind of stuff. No material stuff at all. And so I had that. And then the next thing that happened was I was dealing with John because he went after John's DNA. And so I was into this whole thing, and I have this DNA experiment, which I don't know if I've talked to you about, which I think it's like you're going to flip the world on its head if it actually works. And I think it will work. I can talk about it in a minute. But so he's doing this DNA stuff. So they're looking at experiencers, and they're trying to find out basically the Chris Bledsoe thing. So Chris Bledsoe has like everybody, like president on down. Everybody knows who this guy is. They're following him. So why are they following him? So they want to harass him? No, they're trying to follow him because they're going, how does Chris Bledsoe have this contact? Like, how are you contacting them? Who are you in contact with? That's the only way you're going to discover who you're dealing with, is to go to the contactees, because they're in contact. And that's what happened with Chris Bledsoe. He has everybody following him, everybody listening to everything he says, watching whatever he's doing, because he's the guy who's in contact. He's the ambassador to whoever this intelligence is. And so what I realized they were doing is they were going to these experiencers, and they'd gone to John and they wanted his DNA. And John always believed that he had been injured. And I stand opposed to this whole nonsense about evil aliens and that the aliens injured all these people. And so I actually asked John at one point, I said, John, you had this heart problem from this terahertz energy. I was actually contacted by a cardiologist from England when I was in England. And the guy said, I need to talk to you. He said, this is garbage. This terahertz thing is garbage. Terahertz does not affect the heart. I'm one of the leading cardiologists in the UK. I work with $1 million pieces of equipment. I'm telling you, this is absolute nonsense. Terahertz energy does not injure anybody. So I went to John. I said, John, I got a question for you, John. Like, there's three of you. There was Kabanzak, there was you, and there was Peniston. And this craft lit up, and you're the only guy who was injured. Why, if it was an energy field, like, why wasn't everybody else injured like you? And John never answered it. And so what happens is the next thing, I don't know if you've had Jim Peniston on your show, but Jim Peniston just came out with a book. And in that book, on about page 610 or something, he has about 8 pages where he has this interaction with Kit Green. And Kit Green is coming to get his DNA. So they have some sort of knowledge about there's something with the DNA that they can pick up with experiencers, whether the intelligence is messing with the DNA and they're trying to look at what's different with your DNA that indicates, like, maybe you're picking up a signal and it's got something to do with the DNA, and they're trying to figure out, how does this person pick up the signal from the intelligence? So they make this meeting with Jim Peniston in Rockford, Illinois. And Kit Green says, I want to come, I want to talk to you. And so he comes in, and their lawyer is there, Peniston's lawyer and Burroughs' lawyer is there, and he starts giving Kit Green a hard time. And he says, okay, I'm going to find out what the heck you're up to here. You're not leaving here until I find out what you're really doing here. And Kit actually says, during this meeting, he says, we're interested in technology. He said, what do you mean technology? And he said, we're interested in how they're able to pop in and pop back out. And when you start looking, this is the thing, when you start looking at the UFO phenomena, what you see is you don't see a UFO around for hours. You see a UFO pops in and it pops back out. You see a being will pop in and it'll pop back out. Like Shasta, with prime example in August. This being it sort of partly came in, partly was in, partly out, and it only lasted a couple of seconds. And so this is what they're trying to find out. How does the intelligence get into our 3D environment, and how are they able to quickly pop back out? And so he told Burroughs, that Peniston, that's what he's working on. And then they went to the thing about the DNA, and asking why they wanted the DNA, and he said, well, John had given it, and he said, well, John's one thing, I'm not gonna cave in like John did, and he's giving him a hard time, and he said, okay, I'll think about it. And as he leaves, he makes the point that I had about this thing about the evil aliens injuring people. He said, I wasn't injured. He said, and he was offered straight disability. If you give us your DNA, we'll give you straight disability, no questions asked. So Peniston could have collected U.S. military disability, no questions asked. And he said, I'm not injured. This is a scam. If I give into this, if I give them my DNA and take this disability, I'm in the bag with these guys. They control me and all this sort of stuff. And he just basically says, no, I'm not. He contacted Kit Green and says, no, not giving you my DNA. So you have these interactions where Kit Green is basically, they're working on this DNA and they're working on this caudate putamen, which I talk about in contact modalities. I do a couple chapters on this. And this is this idea that the brains of experiencers, this caudate putamen thing, is going to be enlarged. But so is people who have what's called very superior autobiographical memory. And so you start looking at, why is this part of the brain enlarged? And I say they call it like antenna, but it's like this, whatever the intelligence is using this part of the brain. And the more you use a part of the brain, the bigger it gets. It's like the part of the brain where taxi cab drivers in London gets bigger because they have to memorize all these streets and stuff like that. So this part of the brain is bigger because it's being used. It's a signal thing, but it's got something to do with memory, because these people who have this very superior autobiographical memory are people who can remember every event that happened in their life from the time they were 10, and they can tell you what they had for breakfast, what they had for lunch, who was on TV, what the weather was every day. And they tested these people, and they have an enlarged part of that brain as well. So they're looking at this, and they're looking at the signal. They're trying to figure out, why is an experiencer different? How are they picking up the signal? And that's what I say you've got to do. The problem is, number one, they're going to use it for military stuff. And number two, you're probably never going to hear what they're doing. You're never going to find out what they're actually up to, except through leaks. And so there's been these leaks, this tape from Kit Green, and some of the stuff has been leaked by people digging it out of Gary Nolan or Put Off, or these people. And what he said was there was 8 people that were working. So you would have Cole Kelleher, you'll have Hal Putoff, Gary Nolan, John Alexander, Kit Green, and that money is coming from Bigelow, and it's also coming from the military. Because I mentioned that before, that because you're using military people, you can have military money there. So that's what he got out of him. That, yeah, he is doing this research. It is a paid program. They are working on this, and they're working on DNA, and they're working on the brain pattern on this MRI of experiencers to find out how are they able to pick up the signal, and how does the being get in and out.
I'm just perplexed here because, I mean, this is hard to fathom for a lot of people, Grant, as we only got about a minute left to go here. How do you bring this to the mainstream as if it would be or become common knowledge to the public who maybe doesn't understand what this is all about? It's
what I'm saying. It's MJ 12 2.0. They don't care. They don't want the government. They're basically, if the government is funding you, it is classified, and we're going to build weapons out of it. They could care less whether you know or not. And that's why TTSA broke from the UFO community. They really don't care if the UFO community believes. They're there to get financing through this thing to study UFOs, make weapons, whatever they're doing with it. It's all got to do with money, and they have no intention of making the stuff released. It's not to make the world a better place. It's the money is coming from the military, it's going to be produced for the military, not for the public. It's being the military runs it, and we want to build weapons or whatever they want to do with it, and they don't care. It's classified. They're not. You even see they're backing off now. They released this stuff, the films and stuff like that, and they said, "Oh yeah, we're investigating the Navy," and now they're backing off and they're saying, "No, we're not going to release these records," and they're pulling back because that they don't want the public to know, because they have this fear thing. Oh, the Russians will get it. The Russians are going to use it. We need this, and it's all got to do with the $735 billion defense budget. That's where the money is. If you had money, Dave, and you could put up a couple $1 billion, they'd do something for you and the public. You don't have any money. The military's got the money, and they're just going to work for the military, and the military doesn't care whether the population knows. You don't need to know. You just need to know that we're protecting you, and we're killing bad guys all around the world.
That's perfect. Grant Cameron is our guest. We got him still going strong right after this on Spaced Out Radio.
You wanted new SOR gear, and now you can have it. The SOR Vault is fully stocked with t-shirts, hats, hoodies, mugs, and everything in between, with great logos for you to choose from. So head on over to spacedoutradio.com, click on the SOR Vault, and go shopping. Pricing is quite affordable, and you can look good representing your favorite show. So go to our website and pick up your new SOR wear at the SOR Vault today.
Hey everybody, the SOR Space Travelers is open. For just $5 a month, you can hang out with Dave and our crew privately in our members-only section. With your signing, you'll receive newsletters on what's going on with Spaced Out Radio. You'll have direct contact with the host during the show in our chat, live streaming videos, and a great forum for your posts and more. Become a space traveler now at spacedoutradio.com.
Hey, space travelers, this is John Resig, founder of the CHIVE and CHIVE Charities. If you know anything about our website, you know we like to do things a little differently. We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly toward life-improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor with Spaced Out Radio's official charity, CHIVE Charities, just go to chivecharities.org/donate.
Are you looking for great advertising value for your company? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. We have a multitude of places to get your name out there, including commercial ads during the show, special promotions, and banners on our website. Our audience is proven to support the companies that support our show. We can make your budget work for you. So for more information, please contact us at sales@spacedoutradio.com.
Hello, space travelers. It's me again, Carl. Don't forget to join the Space Travelers Club for just $5 a month and follow Spaced Out Radio on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Our Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. Our Facebook page is Spaced Out Radio Show. Our archives are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Come woo it up with Spaced Out Radio today. Bye!
If you like it hot, real hot, then heat up your meals with Bumblefoot hot sauce.
Get your Bumblefoot hot sauce today. The sauce, Bumblelicious, and the 4 million Scoville unit We're going in hot, real hot, coming out even hotter.
Keep the milk nearby and tantalize your taste buds tonight.
Bumblefoot hot sauce, available now at kajans.com.
We're adding to the entertainment online for Spaced Out Radio. I'm Amber Beckard, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out Cryptid Tales, where I will take you on a journey into some of the strangest legends and lore from around the world, relaying the stories to you of the strange creatures and experiences that people have had throughout time. You can find Cryptid Tales at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. And while you're there, don't forget to check out our free archives and leave a comment. See you there.
At spacedoutradio.com, we are keeping you up to date on all the news with the SOR Newswire. Captain Shirk leads the team that is bringing you the news of the day and exclusive stories on everything paranormal and supernatural. It's free to read, it's updated daily, and it's right there for you. The SOR Newswire is a one-stop shop for the news of the day. Check it out at spacedoutradio.com today.
From the heartlands of Canada to beards around the world, we know how to take care of you. Fill your follicles with the Mighty Moose Beard Oil. All our oils and balms are handmade and 100% natural ingredients because we care about your beard. And hey, use the promo code SOR2019 and get your Mighty Moose Beard Oil today. You can check us out on our website, mightymoosebeard.com.
Cold drinks, great food, and the best music in Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is the place to be, open until 2 a.m. nightly. Everything on the menu starts at just $6.95. Who serves food that cheap anymore? At the Moose, you'll never know who you'll run into. Rock stars, actors, athletes. It's the place everyone wants to be. So join us at the Moose Vancouver, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Finish off your weekend and kick off your new week with me, Everett Thiemer, right here on Spaced Out Sundays. I'm going to bring you great guests, a little bit of snark, and plenty of information to think about. But don't worry, there's going to be plenty of woo as well. We are going to hit everything in the paranormal and supernatural, including the odd psychic Sundays. So tune us in on Sunday, 9:06 p.m. Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Move over, brother, and let me own Saturday night.
This is Rich Giordano, and I'm inviting you to tune on in to Spaced Out Saturdays starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, 12 a.m. Eastern, where I'm going to bust open the lids on everything paranormal. Why? Because we want answers, and I'm the guy who's going to deliver those answers to you. Join the chat rooms, and we'll see you this Saturday. Just be there. No, really.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Thaw, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
We pass the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. Great to have you with us. Reminder to all of you that our archives are free. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. If you want to check out some previous shows, just hit that subscribe button. While you're listening to the show, you can check out our website, spacedoutradio.com. We got a plethora of features for you to listen and check out as well. Grant Cameron is here. We're kind of all over the board tonight, talking everything UFOs, high strangeness, what's going to be a secret, what's not, ET contact, are they ultra-terrestrials? Grant, I haven't heard you get into people who are flying the craft yet. You've interviewed a number of those people.
Yeah,
and I find this fascinating.
Yeah, I've never talked to you. I've never talked to you on your show about this, because I've got 50 people. Yeah, I like this Ron Johnson guy. This Ron Johnson guy who's pretty sick. That's the reason I talked to him. I'd heard that he'd flown the craft. I knew him for years. I knew he had a weird story, but I never really talked to him about it. And then I found he'd flown the craft. The first person I had the craft, it was this bizarre story. I was in Phoenix, Arizona, and I gave my first consciousness lecture. So I had to download, and then I gave this lecture on consciousness. And so they said, oh, you're going to meet with Pam Dupuis. And I said, yeah, I guess so. I figured I must have agreed to talk to this woman or whatever. And she came to the house where I was staying on the Monday, and she's like in her 70s, and she says, what did Stacy tell you about me? I go, I don't know, I was just supposed to talk to you. And she goes, that's good. She comes walking in, and she starts on the thing, I'm an experiencer, I'm a remote viewer, and it's the same old thing. It's like, oh, whatever, and she's yakking away about all this stuff. And so then suddenly she says, I was flying the craft. And I was like, it hit me like a brick. In 37 years, I'd never heard anything like this in my life. I was like, you flew the craft? She says, yeah, I flew the craft. She's like, all confident. Oh, yeah, I flew the craft. And I said, they let you fly because I'm thinking to myself, you're a woman, like 77-year-old woman. I said, they let you fly the craft? And she said, yeah, I've flown 3 different models. And I'm going I was going to say, get out of here, leave the house. You're crazy. I could, because I never heard anything like in my life. And then I said, well, how do you fly a craft? And then she says, oh, you do it with your mind. And suddenly it clicked why they had set me up with this woman, why they wanted me to talk to this woman. Because she said, you fly with the mind. She said, you put your hand on a panel and you become one with the craft. This is Oneness message. You become one with the craft and you vibrate with the craft. The craft is alive, and whatever you think is what the craft does. Or aliens will say, like this Ron Johnson said. They said, sit in the chair and then put your fingers in these holes. He said it completely just like as the chair was built for him. And then he said exactly what everybody says. They said, I don't know what to do. And the being says to him, it is within you. You know what to do. Just do it. Whatever you think is what the craft will do. And then he said, what do you want to do? And Ron Johnson says, I'd like to see the Milky Way from a distance, out in deep space. And they said, okay, it's going to be a very abrupt, hard G-force thing for about 1 second. And he said, He said it was just like, he said it was intense. He said it was just, even though it was on 1 second, it was absolutely brutal and intense for 1 second. And he said it was like going through pages of a book. And he talked about multi-dimensions. They're going through the dimensions and they're flipping. He said it was like going through pages of a book as they did this thing. And he said, then suddenly the window was open. He looked and there was the Milky Way in the distance. And he was out in deep space. And it was like 1 second this took. So he has his story. And every time I've gone, and like Chris Bledsoe. So I heard Chris Bledsoe, he's told me, well, I've flown the ship. I said, you flew the ship? Because I'd known him for years. I said, you flew the ship? They let you fly the ship? And they said, yeah. I said, Chris, stop right there. Don't tell me anything. I'm going to get you on Skype. I said, okay. Got him on Skype. I said, okay, Chris, start from the beginning, go to the end, and tell me exactly how you fly a ship. Because at that point, I didn't know that he was going to say you'd use your mind. And he says, this is where he talks about the craft being bigger on the inside than it is outside. He goes to the craft. It's like an egg thing. The door's open. He looks in the craft, and it's really big. And he looks back outside, and it's really small. He goes in, and what he had was you either put your hand on a panel, a flat panel, or you put your hand on a ball. And his was like a ball, but it was like a beehive. It was a pedestal in the middle of this room. And they told him to put his hand on the pedestal, and he said it was like a beehive, and it was made out of, looked like black plastic or like black metal, very high, shiny stuff. Put his hand on this beehive, and he said, then he took his hand off, and you could see like a CD-ROM where you get the color of the light reflecting off it and all these different colors and stuff, and it looked like that, but you could see where his handprint was, and it was changing color. And he said then suddenly these hexagons on the wall started to get bigger and bigger. These hexagons are flipping, and he said next thing he says, boom, the window opens, and he's above the Cape Fear River where he's abducted in 2007. And he said, I'm sitting cross-legged on the floor, looking out the front window, going, yeehaw! And he's like 1 inch above the water, and he's flying this flying saucer down the Cape Fear River. And this is the story tells me. All right. And so I've had 50 people. Nobody has ever said anything different. Melinda Leslie has a bunch of people that she talked to and that she's documented where she talks about them. I had the guy, the 747 airline pilot. I heard a 747 United airline pilot had flown the craft. So I arranged through Joe in California, Joe Burks, who so I asked Joe, I said, can you get me an interview with Joe Vallejo is the guy's name. Can you give me an interview? So I get an interview, and he had done two things. He'd been inside a Zendra, which is one of these portal type things that these Mission Rama protocols can open from time to time. And he was in one of these Zendras with 50 people. They went in 7 at a time. And so he told me that story, and then I said, so you flew the craft? Yeah, I flew the craft. And he basically the same thing. He said, I'm just, whatever I'm thinking is what the craft's doing, and I'm flying this thing through. So there's his, and then the real dramatic one was I'm lecturing in Los Angeles to the Orange County group, and I talk about the flying the craft, and then nothing's said. But we go to the, they always have, they go to Denny's or something after. So we're at the restaurant after the presentation, and this guy, his name is David, walks into the restaurant. He wasn't at the lecture, and they said, David, you should have been there. Grant was talking about flying the craft. Tell him how you flew the craft. And then I look at this David guy and I said, you flew the craft? And he said, yeah, but it seemed like a dream. I said, well, everybody says it's a dream. Everybody says the same thing. I said, oh, I think it was a dream. It seemed like a dream. So I said, oh, everybody thinks it's a dream. And then I said, and then the guy yells out, he says, David, tell him you're a pilot. And I said, oh, my father's a pilot. My son's a pilot. I said, what do you fly? So F4s and then he goes, F-16s. I go, you flew F-16s? And I'm going like, it's not just a pilot. You flew F-16s? And he goes, yeah, I was in Iraq. And he said, I'm a retired U.S. Air Force colonel. I said, sit down and tell me your dream. So he sits down. It's exactly the same thing. He says, you come in the craft, and everybody describes the same thing. So they don't know whether it's a being or whether it's a human. There's somebody behind them as they're in the craft. And then he walks into the craft, and he's standing in the middle of the craft, and there's this panel. And they say, okay, go ahead and do it. And then this David guy goes, I don't know what to do. And then here's this voice behind him and say, you know what to do, just go and do it. And so he walks over and he puts his hands on this panel. And he says, he described it as like being like suction cups on an F-16, which I don't know what he's talking about. And his hands are sort of pulled into this panel. And he says, suddenly, boom, he's flying the craft. And he's going, holy cow. And he's flying, and whatever he's thinking is what the craft's doing. And he's just mystified. He can't figure out how this is happening. So he takes one of his hands off the panel, and he figures it's going to stall. this craft's going to stall. And then nothing happens. And then he takes his other hand off the panel and he leaves it like, 3 or 4 inches over the panel so he can quickly put his hand down if this thing suddenly stalls. And he says he's got both his hands off, and whatever he's thinking, he's flying the craft, and he's not touching anything. So I get these over and over and over again, and every time it's the same thing I'll hear. And it's a lot of women, mostly women, they're flying the craft. People really don't know why they're doing it, but you'll hear Melinda Leslie tell these stories about like her being taught to levitate stuff, or where Melinda Leslie says she goes in the room with these MILAB type experiences where they're saying, levitate this tear-shaped object through this hoop. So there's her and there's J.J. Buchner and people that they brought on the board, and they're doing this levitation thing. And then suddenly this handle goes down or something, and they say, we got another one. And this is what I heard from Melinda and from other people, is that when they've got the experiencer on the ship, so you may have hardware material, but you can't make it work. So what they do is when they've got a piece of machine, and if you, I don't know if my Richard Doty interview is out yet, but I did an interview with Richard Doty. He told me the story that what they would do with HAL Put-Off, HAL had very high security clearances, is they would get pieces of the craft, and they couldn't figure out how to get the stuff to work. So they would bring the pieces to HAL Put-Off, and HAL Put-Off couldn't get it to work either. So they bring it to HAL Put-Off. But what they would do is they would give it to an experiencer, and they would say, can you make this work? And the person would make it work. And they would know, okay, this is a legitimate experience. And that's how they would check these people to make sure they're legitimate experiences, is to give them this piece of the craft. And Melinda apparently could make this thing work. So you get this thing where the government sort of knows this. They're working with experiencers. And the beings are teaching people to levitate. You hear they're bringing kids in, very young kids, and they're in rooms. I hear these stories where, like Pat Dupuy told me the story. She was a young kid, and she was in a room, and the being, she thought it was like a gray, but she couldn't see anything above the waist. They were not allowed to look up. They actually forced them. They could look down. And what these kids would do is they would levitate these balls back and forth to each other like a game. And there was a red ball, a green ball, and a blue ball or something. And one was very hard to do. One was easy to do. One was like a medium thing. And they would practice this thing where they're teaching kids to levitate this thing. So that's what you see, this stuff that's going on. And it makes you wonder, like, why are they teaching people this stuff? And that's the part of the story that I think everybody's totally missing. They're into the videos and even the metal. Because yes. I did the metals. Because the metals, you hear the story, this rumored story that they've got this super electron microscope, and that they've discovered that the aliens are actually messing around with the atom, that the space in the atom is actually bigger, like the isotopes, and then they're messing around with the space inside the atom, and it's actually bigger. And you hear this kind of stuff, but that doesn't prove anything. That just proves that, yeah, this is weird stuff. I mean, we didn't do this. We probably don't have the ability to mess around with isotopes in iron and all this kind of stuff. And it just says that something really weird is going on. And I still go back with the metals. And I say, if you think, because you see these red flags, like the hat on the gray, and the red flag in here is, if you actually think that a flying saucer flew across the galaxy to come and visit us, and then little tiny 1-inch pieces started falling off the flying saucer, I mean, you're crazy. There's no way this is happening. And so I just say they're dropping this stuff. It's like, you take a look at the first case, the first UFO case ever was not Kenneth Arnold. It was Maury Island, 3 days before Kenneth Arnold, where there's these 6 UFOs, and they're watching these UFOs, and the one gets in trouble. It's the same story all the time. The one's in trouble. It looks like it's going to crash, and everybody's going, oh, the cow, and the others two sort of stabilize it, and then the others fly away, and this thing explodes, and all this metal comes raining down and kills a dog and breaks somebody's arm, and there's metals all over the place, and they gather the metal up and stuff like that. And that happened in Brazil as well. They're watching this flying saucer, and it suddenly explodes and rains down this metal on people and stuff like that. The Canadians had 2 pieces in the 50s. There was one on the St. Lawrence Seaway. It was a 3,000-pound piece that Wilbur Smith was analyzing, and he believed it was off-planet type stuff. But the thing is, like, I mean, the skeptics always say, well, how did they fly across the galaxy and then they crash? Well, maybe they're crashing on purpose. And that's, if you look at Diane Pasulka's book, when she does Tyler D., and I know who Tyler D. is. I've had meetings with Tyler D., and so you get this situation where Tyler D. and Gary Nolan, they're taken, or Pasulka is taken with Gary Nolan and Tyler D., and they go to this crash site in New Mexico, which I know where it is because my friend showed Tyler D. where it was. And they go there and they pick up this metal. They got special metal detectors from NASA, and they're picking up this stuff, and they call it the gifting field. So they know it's this idea that I have is this stuff's been gifted to us. They're dropping this stuff, and it may not even be technology. They're just gifting it to you to make you, it's like a crop circle, like, how the heck did they do this? And you're never going to figure it out. It's just weird. Like this one's missing isotopes. This one, the atoms are messed with, and they're just messing with our heads. They're making us go, wow. They're making us go like, what the heck's going on here? And get us to a point where we start to realize we're not alone and stuff like that.
Grant, I got to ask you, because a lot of what you're saying in this portion of the show about people flying the craft, this reminds me of so many times as a kid watching the 1986 Disney movie Flight of the Navigator.
Yeah,
like this is right out of there. I mean, was that movie ahead of its time to what we're talking about today? Or is this just all some mere coincidence? Because I know you look for the synchronicities and everything, and this is just way too ironic for me.
Yeah, well, I pointed this out. I mean, that's always been my theory. And a lot of people disagree with me. I've always said that they're leaking stuff. They've been leaking stuff into, like, 1956. They did the UFO it was in the theaters. It was called UFO. And it was U.S. Air Force guys who were advisors on that movie that was in the theaters. So they've always been interacting. They've always been putting stuff in. I'll tell you the most prominent story. I dealt with Bob Amenegger, who had the Holloman Air Force Base film. And this is this rumored story where the aliens land. There's 3 UFOs, and they come in, and one of them lands, 2 of them fly off. The thing lands on, and the officials at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, the door opens up, and these beings come out, and they were greeted by officials. They put this UFO in the hangar, and this whole thing was apparently filmed, and it's supposedly part of the presidential briefing that rumored that, you know, presidents get to see this 15-minute color film of this landing. So I spent lots of times interviewing Bob Amenegger about this thing, and so I'm talking to him, and then one time I'm interviewing him in Arkansas, and I said, you know, Bob, it's really strange. I said, you know, if it weren't for the location, because he said it was May 1971, Holloman Air Force Base, 6 o'clock in the morning. He had a lot of details of when this thing, 3 cameras, 3 on the ground, 1 in a helicopter, filming this thing as it came in. I said, you know, if it weren't for the location and the time of day, this sounds exactly like Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And then he says to me, what, I didn't tell you? And I go, you didn't tell me what? I didn't tell you I gave a copy to Steven Spielberg? I said, no, you didn't tell me that. The documentary was 1975, and he said, I told you Annie Spielberg worked for me. Annie Spielberg worked for me, and Stephen wanted a copy of the documentary in 1975, and Close Encounters comes out in 1976 or 77. It's the same story. 3 UFOs hovering. They're waiting for it. They've got all the cameras running. They know what's going to happen. It's all being filmed, and they have this contact, and the 2 fly away and the 1 lands. It's the same story. And then he said to me, he says, I'll tell you. He says, when Close Encounters came out, Steven Spielberg's mother came to me and said, Bob, I've seen your version of the landing, and I've seen Steven's version of the landing, and I like Steven's version better. So you have that directly putting in it. And you mentioned the Navigators, but you have the one with Clint Eastwood, with the Firefox, where he steals the Russian jet and the MiG, whatever it was, MiG jet. And it's the same thing. He's using his mind to fly the jet. And that's what they do is you put this stuff. Firefox, yeah. And so you do this. You put this stuff subliminally into, that's how they leak the material that, you know, that they want out there, and it's plausible deniability. So you put it out like a phony government document. You put it out like Lou Elizondo's resignation letter when it was on Mellon's website, and they say, oh, it's Lou Elizondo's resignation letter. I say, it's not. There's no way it's going to be his resignation. And they said, yeah, it is. And I said, well, send me these documents. And so they sent me the documents from Mellon's website. So the story was, well, Mellon had this stuff, and somebody hacked his website, and Twitter J guy picks it up from England, and he grabs all this stuff off Mellon's website. And I'm going, this didn't happen by accident, man. They left this thing open for people to grab it. And I said, send me the documents. So they send me these documents. Okay, so they send me the and everybody's seen it. Nobody picks up on it. They send me the Elizondo resignation letter. And I first look and I go, come on, it's got no date on it. How can you resign your office when you haven't got a date on it? How do you resign when there's no date on the letter? And secondly, you're resigning to the Secretary of Defense. If you're in ATIP, you don't resign, or the program, the ASOP program, you don't resign to the Secretary of Defense. You resign to your boss. And then they misspelled deferred retirement. There was a bunch of mistakes in there. It's just like the MJ-12 document. It was like you alter documents and you put it out as plausible deniability. And the other one they leaked was, you remember this whole story with this girl. So suddenly we got this girl. We discovered this girl, and she's one of the pilots from the F-18s and stuff like that. And that was one of the documents. So it was like it appeared to be like a document where they were doing these investigations and they're talking to these different pilots. And yet when you look at it, and you look at it carefully, and you start looking for red flags, you see just direct red flags that this document has been altered, and they wanted this girl out. So everybody says, we covered her name because her name was in there. Not only her name was in there, her birth date was in there, her phone number was in there, everything was in there. But there was 4 pilots. So they've got her with every conceivable detail you need to track her down. And the other ones, they've got the other pilots where they're saying, maybe born in Massachusetts, about 40 years old. They have nothing. It's like these other 3 pilots, the main pilots that were, everybody's talking about, they had no details on. But this girl, they had everything. And that's how you out the thing. So you leak this material. It has plausible deniability because you can say that it's a phony document. You can legitimately come out and say it's a phony document. It is. They've altered the document. They want it out. And I've said they've been doing this all along. They just gradually put this stuff in movies and stuff, because that's the way you're going to change consciousness, is because if I come to you straight in your face, you go like, get away from me. You make the sign of the cross and say, get out of my life. And you go farther into your corner than you were. But if you put it on a documentary, which is what they're doing, that's what Jim Semivan's in charge of, is getting this stuff into Hollywood on History Channel, on all these different things, where a skeptic can sit there and turn on the TV and say, this is garbage. And he sits there and watches it, and he doesn't realize he's being brainwashed. He's being altered. And that's what you do, is you put it into general Hollywood stuff, and the attitude will slowly change in terms of everybody, because that's what happened with, you take a look at the New York Times thing. That's what happened. So for years, they leaked all this stuff. Nobody could confirm it. And then when suddenly the New York Times says, the government's investigating UFOs, we used to think that the stock market would melt down, people would jump off bridges. Nothing happened. Everybody just went, yeah, I knew they're doing that. No big deal. You had to acclimatize people to the point that when the article actually came out, nobody blinked an eye. They said, oh, yeah, we knew that. We suspected the government was doing this. And that's what they do. It's this gradual acclimatization thing. And that's what they did to Bob Emenegger. So Bob Emenegger put this movie. He was brought into Norton Air Force Base in 1974. He had worked for Richard Nixon. He was he was an advertising guy, worked on the Nixon re-election campaign. He was friends with Bob Haldeman, the chief of staff. He was in communication. He'd gone to the Air Force with the communication guy for Nixon. He was the prime guy. They said, we want you to do 8 documentaries on the military stuff, 3D holography, working with dolphins, all this sort of stuff. And he goes, that's cool, and so they're signing this contract in the Pentagon. And then Chartle, the guy is detailing it, says, and we'd also like you to do this UFO documentary, and we'd like you to hide it under the other documentaries. And he went, UFOs? You mean this crap's for real? And he couldn't believe it. And then he does the documentary. It comes out, and it has the alien being channeled at the Pentagon or at the CIA headquarters thing there, and all these bizarre stories that leak out into this thing. And then in 1983, Bob says they come back to him. Chartle comes back to him in 1983, and he says, we'd like you to get Jacques Vallée, we'd like you to get Hynek, and we'd like you to do another documentary. The government liked what you did in the 1970s, and we'd like you to do another one. And he said, so who's behind this? Is this Reagan? And they wouldn't answer his question, but they wanted him to do it again. And because Hynek and Vallée knew that they'd pulled the film in the first version, they knew that they were going to pull the carpet out from under them. And they said, we're not going to be involved. And they canned it because Jacques Vallée and Hynek would not be involved in the documentary. So they've been doing this all along. They're dropping this stuff indirectly through movies, through phony documents. I maintain they've been doing this all along.
Grant, I'm going to get you to hold on right there. We're going to go to break here at the top of the hour. We got Grant Cameron for another 30 minutes on Spaced Out Radio before we head into the news and the thought of the day. Yes, we got a busy third hour coming up here on the Mighty SOR. Stay tuned. We're back right after this.
The SOR Vault is open for business, and do we have some cool swag for you to pick up? All you have to do is head over to our website and click on the SOR Vault. You have a variety of cool logos to choose from, and put them on anything you want. T-shirts, hoodies, hats, coffee mugs, you name it, we can get it to you. So do your shopping by supporting the store you love. Get your Spaced Out Radio swag at the SOR Vault today.
Hey, space travelers, this is John Resig, founder of the CHIVE and CHIVE Charities. If you know anything about our website, you know we like to do things a little differently. We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly toward life-improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor with Spaced Out Radio's official charity, CHIVE Charities, just go to chivecharities.org/donate.
Hello everyone, this is Ryan Stacy from the Experiencer Support Association, otherwise known as TESA. We're glad to team up with Spaced Out Radio to help investigate your experiences on the SOR Sightlines Report. Together, we'll investigate the strange sightings and occurrences you've had. We're looking for answers just like you. So fill out a Sightlines report on the Spaced Out Radio website and let's figure out what's going on together.
A little bit of science, a little bit of skepticism. Add a dash of snark and you have the makings of Spaced Out Sundays with me, Everett Thieme. Together we will look into the reality of the paranormal with an open eye and rational thought. Oh, did I mention there'll be plenty of woo as well? Your time spent with Spaced Out Sundays will make the night even better. The chat rooms are open, 9:06 p.m. Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Move over, brother, and let me own Saturday night.
This is Rich Giordano, and I'm inviting you to tune on in to Spaced Out Saturdays starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, 12 a.m. Eastern, where I'm going to bust open the lids on everything paranormal. Why? Because we want answers, and I'm the guy who's going to deliver those answers to you. Join the chat rooms, and we'll see you this Saturday. Just be there. No, really.
Hello, space travelers. It's me again, Carl. Don't forget to join the Space Travelers Club for just $5 a month. And follow Spaced Out Radio on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Our Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. Our Facebook page is Spaced Out Radio Show. Our archives are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Come woo it up with Spaced Out Radio today. Bye!
We are scouring the world for the most intriguing stories of your day. Take the time to read up on the SOR Newswire, where our team, led by Captain Shirk, will deliver to you some of the best paranormal and supernatural news, along with some stories that will blow your mind from the weird to the wacky. It's the news outside the news that piques interest, and that's what we're looking to deliver to you. The SOR Newswire, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Looking for creative ways to get your company out in the public? How about advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Our sales department is waiting to hear from you, and we can work around any budget. From commercial spots to banners to special promotions, there are many opportunities to get your name and product out to our SOR listeners. For a price guide and more information, please contact us at sales@spacedoutradio.com.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Thal, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
We all know on Spaced Out Radio we love a good beard and mustache, so why not take care of your facial hair with Mighty Moose Beard Oil? Made in Canada, we're taking care of beards and stashes around the world. We use 100% natural ingredients with our oils and balms to make your whiskers feel silky smooth. Use promo code SOR2019 at MightyMooseBeard.com today.
For the price of 1 cup of coffee a month, you can become an SOR Space Traveler. The Space Travelers Club is a place where you can interact with other listeners, either live during the show or on our great forum. We want your stories, pictures, comments, and ideas. You'll get live video streams, exclusive content, and be a part of our newsletter. Stay in touch with everything SOR. The Space Travelers Club is just $5 a month at spacedoutradio.com.
I'm feeling a little spicy tonight. What to do? What to do?
Why not get Bumblefoot?
4 million Scoville units of pure hard rock. Bumblefoot hot sauces come in 3 flavors. The burning Bumble. Tone it down a bit with Bumblicious and throw the sauce on everything.
Spice it up. Bumble me, baby. Bumblefoot hot sauce. Get it today at CHIVE.com.
We're adding to the entertainment online for Spaced Out Radio. I'm Amber Beckard, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out Cryptid Tales, where I will take you on a journey into some of the strangest legends and lore from around the world, relaying the stories to you of the strange creatures and experiences that people have had throughout time. You can find Cryptid Tales at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. And while you're there, don't forget to check out our free archives and leave a comment. See you there.
The party is always on at the Moose Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is where you want to be when visiting Canada's West Coast. Open until 2 a.m. nightly, the Moose cranks up the rock while serving some of the best rated food in the city. The menu starts at $6.95. Why party anywhere else in Vancouver when the Moose is right there? Get your horns up and rock with the Moose, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back to the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for joining us. Want to say a big thanks to everybody listening in on KZFX 93.7 FM in Ridgecrest, California, KDUN AM 1030 in Reedsport, Oregon, WQEE 99.1 FM in Newton, Georgia, KDNF AM 1560 in Dangerfield, Texas, and UPRN 107.7 FM in New Orleans. On the digital side, we're proud to broadcast on Kingdom of Nye Radio and Revolution Radio. Remember, you can check out all of our archives for free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Allurophilia. Allurophilia is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets a password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we got a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, do a little shopping at the SOR Vault. Grab a great book from We Read the Night. Join the Space Travelers for $5 a month, and Captain Shirk has you all up to date on the SOR Newswire. For the final time tonight, we introduce Grant Cameron. UFOs 2020. We're talking tonight. What is happening? What's going to change? Which direction are we going? And Grant, do you think a lot more people are going to be contacted by strange circumstances this year in regards to UFOs, what they know, what they've been contacted with? Because there seems to be a big game being played out there, and nobody knows what that game really is.
Are you talking government contact, or are you talking about the intelligence?
Government or intelligence? Can we tell the difference today?
Yeah, government, I would tend to agree sort of with John Alexander that there's a lot less funding than people think there is. So you have these distinct programs like Kid Green and working with experiencers. The intelligence, there's a lot of people, just like I'm inundated with emails with people who have these, stories that are 10 times what Travis Walton's story is, where they're telling you these stuff, and I just don't have time to deal with them. It's not that I have anything against them. They sort of want me to investigate their case or whatever. I have these girls, these two dyslexic girls that, I don't know if you've seen the story about the beings. And when I saw their message, it was like, oh man, they're tapped into this message. Just totally bizarre, where, daily contact messages. I think it's almost like the idea where the veil is getting thinner, where more and more people are coming with these. I have a weekend experiencer thing where people come on, and it was running every second week. Now we may go to once a month, but we get 33 people on there, and a lot of people, just as many people who would be there, but they're working on that day or something. And you hear the stories that these people have, like really direct face-to-face contact, messages, downloads, photographs, just unbelievable stuff. And that's where I keep impressing people that you think that this has always been going on. It hasn't, because when I started in 75, there was only Betty and Barney Hill abduction. There was this Schumer guy, a police officer in Nebraska in 67. There was the Pascagoula case in 73. And then Travis Walton was abducted. At the same time, they went into if you remember the story with the missile silos, where the UFOs are inside the nuclear missile silos in Wordsworth and Loring and Minot and all these bases along the Canadian border. That's when Travis was abducted. But there was really no abductions. There was really, it was a completely different world. And now you see people, even these people, if I don't know if you had any of these people who do the alien language stuff. These people are like a dime a dozen almost now, where they can speak these weird alien languages. And Mary Rodwell's got a bunch of kids, like 7 years old, 9 years old, who are doing this quantum physics stuff, and they're doing this alien languages and stuff like that. And I had Mary on my Winnipeg group where she was coming across on Zoom. And I realized there was 3 people in the room that she was talking about when they're doing this alien language stuff. Well, you would have got locked up in the 70s if you had ever talked about stuff like this. It was unbelievable. In the 70s, it was basically you had one, and the people don't realize it. In 1975, if you had one UFO sighting, you were crazy. If you had more than one, you were totally lying. There's absolutely no way you could have more than one UFO sighting, because it was considered to be a random phenomena. You just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, and you saw a UFO. There's no way you would get a chance to win the 649 lottery twice in a row. And now we believe, oh yeah, if you're an experiencer, you're a lifer. They took you when you were a little kid, when they could put something in your brain before it had all sorts of garbage in your brain. They'd stick stuff in there. And we now know, like, people are patterned, that it follows you. It'll be your kids' kids. They're going to take everybody. They just keep going through this pattern. And I think that's part of what people don't realize, is that there's this very high level of contact and much more direct level of contact. And people are able to sort of bring them in. You have lots of people doing the CE5 contact stuff, which I'm not sure. Again, there it still is going to be a lot of this pop in, pop out, where a light appears in the sky, flashes, and everybody gets all excited. Well, that's really not telling you anything. It's just maybe you can make some contact, but it doesn't tell you what's going on. But the experiencers, there's so many of these people. It's unbelievable. And there's no way they're making it up. Their stories are very elaborate, and they have these very bizarre sort of patterns. I'll give you another pattern, where we started looking at the experiments done in the 1990s with DMT. This was kept very secret by Strassman, who did the experiments, is that half of the people in the DMT experiments had what they call the machine elves, the aliens. They would encounter aliens. And 20% of them had not only the aliens, but the abduction on the table, the whole bit. And then Strassman would go to them and say, were you abducted? And they go, no, I don't think so. I don't remember any UFO sighting. And he couldn't believe that there was so many people who had these alien encounters on DMT. And this girl, this Sinead, who's helping me do interviews, that was one of the reasons I linked up with her. Is she had this ayahuasca experience, very dramatic ayahuasca experience, where she's in this experience and she's in the hut, And suddenly all this stuff starts to happen, and she sees this craft, and there's these sort of light beings and sort of swirls, and they're not really like human type things. They're sort of more like light beings around this craft. And she says, next thing she knows, she's on the craft. And then she's back on the ground, and they say, we want you to come on with us. Let's go. We're going to show you some stuff. And so you get this ayahuasca experience where you have this UFO thing happening in the middle of this ayahuasca experience. And you realize that with the DMT, which is the bottom, the sort of the active ingredient in ayahuasca, that this happens all the time. And so we can learn to tap into this stuff. And yet we have to do these experiments, and we have to track what these people are doing and what they're telling. And when they come on, as long as they know that they're not going to be laughed at, they come on my thing and they talk. And some of the stuff, I have one from Winnipeg with the orbs. And if you saw the one I did, it's going to be on my YouTube channel shortly, but I do a PowerPoint. They gave me all these photographs from just north of Winnipeg on their farm. And they do this stuff with orbs, both at Sedona, Arizona, and just north of Winnipeg at Lower Fort Garry. And it's unbelievable. You see these orb things in these photographs, like swarms of them, where the whole one side of the painting or one side of the photograph is all these thousands of orbs, and the other side there's nothing on it at all. And these objects going through the sky, leaving these streaks across the sky in just like a quarter of a second or whatever the frame was. So I'm really amazed, based upon knowing what happened in the 70s, where basically people saw UFO. There was no abductions. There was no crop circles. There was no MILABs. There was absolutely nothing. There was just a couple of UFO sightings. And now it's like, it doesn't matter how weird the story is. It's almost like some people will say, if the story, I think it's even Whitley says, if the story isn't weird enough, it's not true. If it's really weird, that means the story's true. And you hear these stories that it's just unbelievable, the contact that people are having now.
The contact they are having, is it positive? Is it negative? Do we know what kind of contact it is?
Okay, that's one thing I always dispute with people. People say there's these evil aliens. The free survey shows 85% say it's a positive phenomena. 84% say if they had the chance to turn it off, they would not turn it off, let it keep going. Only 9% believe it's an evil phenomena. Ray Hernandez went back and re-interviewed a lot of those people with the 9% and said, why do you think this thing was evil? And they said, because it scared the living daylights out of me. It was a big 8-foot-tall reptilian standing beside my bed. And he said, that was it? That's why you think it's evil? Yeah, and or the black. I mean, it's shadow figures, and they're black. I had that discussion with Chris Bledsoe. And I said, well, how do you know they're evil? Well, they're black. And I said, well, it's because they're black doesn't mean they're evil. And so this is the thing that, and the other thing that free survey showed when it comes to the evil alien thing is that the more experience you had, the more encounters you had, and the more you had treatment like regression or something, the less fearful the thing became. That a lot of the fear was misinterpretation. The first time it happens, yeah, sure, you have no idea what's going on. But the more experiences people have, the more positive they see the phenomena. And so I'm adamant, as I said, I think off break, was people say there's these evil aliens who are here to eat us or whatever. And I say, when they drop the first atomic bomb or firebomb a city, send me the petition. I'll sign the evil alien petition. Until then, we have met the enemy and he is us. There's these stories that the American military has killed 20 to 30 million people since World War II. There was 50 million people killed in World War II by all the forces around the earth fighting with each other. We're the nutcases. I mean, even the Rendlesham Forest thing, to me, it doesn't make any sense. I don't think there was anybody injured there. John Burroughs had a heart problem, but I don't think it had anything to do with the UFOs. You get the thing with people who always bring up Clarice Brazil. What about Clarice Brazil? All these people had these injuries and people killed and whatever. And now Jacques Vallée has now stated he's got a CIA document that talks about the fact that the CIA was in Brazil and they were doing operations based on UFO type stuff to look at, I don't know what, some sort of, military thing, fear and all this kind of stuff. And that it may have been military, that all the Clarice stuff was the U.S. military, the CIA down there doing bad stuff, or what Kit Green calls. Kit Green says, In one posting, in 2007, he said, Uncle Sam is clueless and the counterintelligence people are playing bad games.
Does the government have control on who is being taken and who isn't? Who is in contact and who's not? Do they know?
Absolutely. Well, they have notions, but if you take a look at these two things, Kit Green says in this 2007, no abductions. If you look at the Wilson document, this one that is this people disputed, but it is a Mitchell document. I'll guarantee it's from Mitchell's files, and it comes from NIDS. It was a NIDS program. Because what NIDS did is, and because I was dealing with NIDS during that time, I was dealing with Eric Davis. I know what NIDS was doing. And NIDS was basically, as Bob Bigelow had piles of money, and he would bring in Kit Green, Hal Puthoff, John Alexander, Valet, Edgar Mitchell, and he would pay them big money to come in. And it was like, we're going to work on, his number one program was, we're going to work on UFOs and we're going to work on life after death. That's how it started. That's in the Jacques Vallée book. That was what the intention of NIDS was. And the one scientist stood up and said, we're going to do life after death and we're going to do UFOs. Why don't we just do ESP and Sasquatches? and Bigelow defended. He said, because, it's the idea that if you understand what happens at death, that's all the mysteries. You're going to solve all the mysteries. And the idea that we can work on UFOs and measure things. So NIDS was bringing all these people in at very big money. And if you come in, then you have to produce because you're getting paid this money. And they worked on all sorts of stuff. They worked on the Black Triangles. They worked on cattle mutilations. They were working on the Holloman Air Force Base film. They were actually going to bring Paul Shartle, who was the guy who released the film, to Bob Emenegger. They were going to bring him in. He died in a rollover car accident just before he was brought at NIDS. They were into all sorts of stuff. They were coming to me about the Canadians. They were coming to me about the Holloman Air Force Base film. I was getting contacted because they were basically like these guys with a lot of money who was trying to figure out this stuff for Bob Bigelow. And so when you had this whole deal with the alien autopsy document that came out from the Mitchell files, they were working on the alien autopsy. And Richard Doty told me, I did the interview with Richard Doty. He said, yeah, sure, we were working on this thing. We were in Kit Green's room with this stuff. We were sure they were trying to figure out the alien autopsy. Is it real? And then Kit Green said he had seen a video that was very similar. And we now know that, Disney had shown it to a guy by the name of Mark Maloney, who was a top photographer in Great Britain. And it was, now his name is going to escape me. He's one of the 9 animators. And I recovered in Stanton Friedman's files because I do Stanton Friedman's files. In Stanton Friedman's files, there's actually the lecture where one of the Disney animators comes to the 1979 MUFON conference, and he shows a documentary that Disney had been asked to do in 1956. And it was the same thing as Bob Emenegger. He was told, do the documentary, we're going to give you video, we're going to give you photographs. And he did the documentary, and at the very end, they said, oh, time's not right. And they said, we can't give you the video, we can't give you the photographs. And so this guy comes in 1979 and shows this documentary that was never released, that was done by Walt Disney in 1956 on UFOs. And he actually is the guy who brings in Maloney and shows him the alien autopsy video in 1978. And Maloney says, it was the same video. It was identical. I'm a photographer. It was the same video, except the one I saw had a live alien in the corner. And so NIDS was a big deal. They were doing all this kind of stuff. And in the Wilson leak document, where Wilson, this head of intelligence or Joint Chiefs of Staff, says, I didn't get briefed, but this guy did get briefed. And that was one of the things he says. He said, no alien abductions. So you start looking at this thing, and you start, especially when you get to the DMT thing with the ayahuasca, and you go like, something's wrong here. These people are being abducted, or I have cases of artists who disappear. And they refer to it as God took them into the universe and showed them things and stuff like that. And you get these things where people are disappearing. But the thing is it happening on the physical plane, or is this like an out-of-body experience? And when you start comparing stuff that people are saying, they start repeating stories that are told in the spirit world. And that's where I start veering off the pattern and saying, maybe Jacques Vallée and all these early guys are right. Maybe this is more complex than ETs, and we just make assumptions, and then we get into corners and we can't back out of it because we've said it's ET and we can't back out of it. There's so many red flags that people, I think when they see the book, they're going to realize there's a lot of stuff that has just been glossed over that people really didn't look at and really didn't question, and they were basically telling us right up front, there's something wrong. This is not what you think it is.
We've only got about 4 minutes left, Grant. Let's take a look at what your year in 2020 is going to look like here, because I know you're one of the most requested people to speak on the conference scene. And how are you looking for this year?
I'm not doing much conference. I do a lot of video. I do a lot of YouTube video stuff, which is much faster. I can go to people. I'm trying to document as many of these really dramatic contact experiences as possible. And I have some pretty interesting videos that I haven't released yet, but are coming out. I'm doing a lecture in Manchester in June, and it's sort of like, I don't know how many more lectures I'll do, but this is the one I'm going to do. It's called What I Think I Know for Sure. And this is like what I'm absolutely sure after 45, because it'll be 45 years that I've done it, that I'm absolutely sure. And I get into time, about this idea about time and space, examples in the UFO cases that show there is no time and no space. And it's pretty clear that this is proving that there's no time and space. And this whole thing about, are we dealing with abductions? Are we dealing with ETs? I'm going to go through all the evidence there. But otherwise, I'm spending a lot of time with Stanton Friedman stuff. I've got 6,000 pages. I'm starting to release in PowerPoint presentations his stuff. I got 6,000. I'm going back in June again. This time I'm going for 10 days. So I'll probably pick up 10,000 pages of material. That's a collection that's probably going to take them 2 to 4 years to go through. It's a massive collection. And for people who might be looking for the interesting stuff, apparently Stanton Friedman taped all his phone calls. So there's a number of phone calls I'm looking for. And I did find one very key story that I knew Stanton had been involved in, and that was the 1967 Cuban story, where the Cubans scrambled a jet. They scrambled 2 MiG-21s, I think, and this UFO is coming into Cuba. They give it warning. They say, turn around, identify yourself, or we're going to shoot you down, whatever. And this is picked up by the NSA. It's picked up out of a naval base in Florida. And Stan gets involved in this, talking to the guy who leaked the story. And they lock onto this thing, and they're ready to fire. And the NSA picks up the back plane, the jet fighter, where he starts screaming that the plane in front of him just disintegrated. And this was all picked up by U.S. intelligence. And Stan was involved in that. And I've got those, and hopefully there's some tapes of talking to the guy that was telling the story, because there's be some interesting stuff in Stan's. There's a lot of stuff like me, with Stan is getting photographs of UFOs, like 7 UFOs over this field, daylight photographs, 7 UFOs, and this stuff was never released because Stan just didn't have time to do it. So that's basically what I'm doing: gather as much material as I can, put it out as much as I can to people, and just let people look at it. I look at the documents. I don't really try to convince people. The more people know, the more people see. People will decide for themselves what's right and what's wrong.
Very cool, Grant. It's always a pleasure to have you on Spaced Out Radio. I know it'll be a few months before we get you back on, but I want to say thank you for always taking the time for our audience. It's always great. I love our hockey conversations off the air, and you know damn well if anything weird happens, you're one of the first ones I'm calling.
Well, you're a big show. You got to do your show. I mean, you're the Canadian coast to coast guy. So anything I can do to help promote it and move it along, because you're getting it out to a big audience, and that's basically what it's about. It's about educating the people, and in the end, the people will make the right decision as to what to do and what's going on.
Thank you, my friend. I always appreciate that. And we'll catch you very soon somewhere down the road, because we always seem to find you. You take care. Grant Cameron, everybody on Spaced Out Radio. Coming up next, we have the SOR Newswire and the Thought of the Day. We got a lot more Spaced Out Radio coming on up, which is always a good time for all of you. Got some interesting news. Remember, you can check out our archives for free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio, because we have them all there for you. So make sure you check those on out. Grant Cameron, everybody. We'll talk to him very, very soon. We'll be back right after this.
Hello, space travelers. It's me again, Carl. Don't forget to join the Space Travelers Club for just $5 a month and follow Spaced Out Radio on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Our Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. Our Facebook page is Spaced Out Radio Show. Our archives are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Come woo it up with Spaced Out Radio today. Bye!
Hey everybody, the SOR Space Travelers is open. For just $5 a month, you can hang out with Dave and our crew privately in our members-only section. With your signing, you'll receive newsletters on what's going on with Spaced Out Radio. You'll have direct contact with the host during the show in our chat, live streaming videos, and a great forum for your posts and more. Become a space traveler now at spacedoutradio.com.
A little bit of science, a little bit of skepticism. Add a dash of snark and you have the makings of Spaced Out Sundays with me, Everett Thieme. Together we will look into the reality of the paranormal with an open eye and rational thought. Oh, did I mention there'll be plenty of woo as well? Your time spent with Spaced Out Sundays will make the night even better. The chat rooms are open, 9:06 p.m. Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Hey Spaced Out Radio fans, it's John Resig, founder of the CHIVE and CHIVE Charities. Our goal is to make the life of veterans, first responders, and those with rare medical conditions 10% happier. We do this by donating one grant item, ranging from vans to therapy programs to prosthetic limbs, to those who need it most. To contribute to Spaced Out Radio's official charity, head over to chivecharities.org and become a donor today.
You wanted new SOR gear, and now you can have it. The SOR Vault is fully stocked with t-shirts, hats, hoodies, mugs, and everything in between, with great logos for you to choose from. So head on over to spacedoutradio.com, click on the SOR Vault, and go shopping. Pricing is quite affordable, and you can look good representing your favorite show. So go to our website and pick up your new SOR wear at the SOR Vault today.
Cold drinks, great food, and the best music in Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is the place to be, open until 2 a.m. nightly. Everything on the menu starts at just $6.95. Who serves food that cheap anymore? At the Moose, you'll never know who you'll run into. Rock stars, actors, athletes. It's the place everyone wants to be. So join us at the Moose Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Are you looking for great advertising value for your company? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. We have a multitude of places to get your name out there, including commercial ads during the show, special promotions, and banners on our website. Our audience is proven to support the companies that support our show. We can make your budget work for you. So for more information, please contact us at sales@spacedoutradio.com.
At spacedoutradio.com, we are keeping you up to date on all the news with the SOR Newswire. Captain Shirk leads the team that is bringing you the news of the day and exclusive stories on everything paranormal and supernatural. It's free to read, it's updated daily, and it's right there for you. The SOR Newswire is a one-stop shop for the news of the day. Check it out at spacedoutradio.com today.
We all know on Spaced Out Radio we love a good beard and mustache, so why not take care of your facial hair with Mighty Moose Beard Oil? Made in Canada, we're taking care of beards and stashes around the world. We use 100% natural ingredients with our oils and balms to make your whiskers feel silky smooth. Use promo code SOR2019 at MightyMooseBeard.com today.
Move over, brother, and let me own Saturday night.
This is Rich Giordano, and I'm inviting you to tune on in to Spaced Out Saturdays starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, 12 a.m. Eastern, where I'm going to bust open the lids on everything paranormal. Why? Because we want answers, and I'm the guy who's going to deliver those answers to you. Join the chat rooms, and we'll see you this Saturday. Just be there. No, really.
If you like it hot, real hot. Then heat up your meals with Bumblefoot hot sauce.
Get your Bumblefoot hot sauce today. The sauce, Bumblelicious, and the 4 million Scoville unit Bumble. We're going in hot, real hot, coming out even hotter.
Keep the milk nearby. And tantalize your taste buds tonight.
Bumblefoot hot sauce, available now at kajans.com.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Thaw, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
We're adding to the entertainment online for Spaced Out Radio. I'm Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out Cryptid Tales, where I will take you on a journey into some of the strangest legends and lore from around the world, relaying the stories to you of the strange creatures and experiences that people have had throughout time. You can find Cryptid Tales at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. And while you're there, don't forget to check out our free archives and leave a comment. See you there.
We've rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to remind all of you that, we got some cool things happening around here. If you want to check out our free archives, you can do so at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we got a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, do a little shopping at the SOR Vault, grab a great book from We Read the Night. Join the Space Travelers for $5 a month, and Captain Shirk has you all up to date on the SOR Newswire. Speaking of the news, let's get to it, shall we? The news is always changing, which is why we bring you the SOR Newswire at the back end of every show, where we get to the weird, the wacky, the wild, but sometimes complete spacey. Yeah. So Robert Hurt, a visualization scientist who works for the Spitzer Space Center, is taking the decommission of NASA's Spitzer Space Telescope a little bit more personally than most. Aside from being on the precipice of an emotional breakdown after the loss of something that's as dear to him as a family member, he says he's doing well. Even those of us who haven't spent our careers creating images of the universe from Spitzer data can appreciate the loss. On January 30th, NASA's Spitzer Space Telescope concluded 16 years of infrared observations that allowed scientists to reveal some of the most hidden regions of our universe. With a primary mission of only 2.5 years, Spitzer's small size and efficiency propelled the telescope to exceed scientists' expectations, revolutionizing our understanding of exoplanets, the composition of planetary systems, and even the earliest star formations. But now, as Spitzer's batteries reach the end of their lives, the telescope is experiencing communication barriers and cooling difficulties. The Spitzer team at NASA and the California Institute of Technology has no choice but to bid adieu to the spacecraft as well. Spitzer has fundamentally changed astronomy textbooks, says Sean Carey, manager of Spitzer's Science Center of Caltech. It told us much about the universe in so many different aspects. Spitzer, one of NASA's 4 great observatories, launched in October 25th, 2003. The telescope cost around $720 million, making it the least expensive of the 4 great observatories launched by NASA in the 1990s and early 2000s. The others include the Hubble, the Compton Gamma Ray Observatory, and the Chandra X-ray Observatory. Spitzer is unique among the space telescopes because it operates in an orbit revolving around the sun and trailing behind the Earth rather than orbiting our planet. Its distance from Earth and the moon prevents an excess of interference of infrared radiation, the type of light that Spitzer observes, Carey said. But as Spitzer continues to lag behind Earth, falling farther and farther away, more effort is needed to keep its power running. Eventually, the spacecraft will be on the opposite side of the sun, preventing all forms of communication. The telescope's infrared observations are unique from the other great observatories, which operate in visible and ultraviolet light. Because our sky filters out infrared light, astronomers relied on Spitzer in our space to capture the deep corners of the universe. Infrared allows scientists to see objects that are too cold to emit such visible light, as well as regions blocked by dusty clouds. See you later, Spitzer. It's been good. You scared the living daylights out of us. All right, moving on here. But sticking with space, record-breaking NASA astronaut Christina Koch and two of her colleagues will complete their missions aboard the International Space Station this week and head back to Earth, and their departure and landing will be shown live on NASA TV. Koch, who has spent 328 consecutive days in space, during which she broke the record for the longest single-duration spaceflight by a woman, and also participated in the first all-woman spacewalk, along with her colleague Jessica Meyer. She is also seventh on the list of American astronauts who have spent the most time in space and will have completed the second longest single space flight stay by an American astronaut after Scott Kelly. During her time on the ISS, Koch participated in 6 spacewalks, including walks to upgrade the station's power system and to fix the alpha magnetic spectrometer, because who doesn't know how to fix one of those? A dark matter detection instrument which has far outlived its originally planned lifespan. It was previously considered unserviceable. According to NASA, Koch spent a total of 42 hours and 15 minutes outside the station on spacewalks. And during her stay inside, she will have traveled 5,248 orbits around the Earth, equivalent to a journey of 139 million miles. Koch will depart the ISS along with her two colleagues, Luca Paramato of the European Space Agency and Alexander Skvortsov of the Russian Space Agency, Roscosmos, each of whom will have spent 201 days in space. This is Parmitano's second mission to the ISS, and he will achieve a total of 367 days in space, which is the longest, highest number for any ESA astronaut. The Russian is third in his third mission to the ISS and will have spent a massive total of 546 days in space. The three astronauts will board the Soyuz MS-13 spacecraft. I wonder if they asked the gang for their designation there and permission. You know, the old MS-13 gang may have some, legal parameters there with the Russians. They'll leave on Wednesday, February 5th, which will carry them then back to Earth, performing a parachute-assisted landing in Kazakhstan. You can watch the departure and landing using video below on NASA Live. I believe that'll be on YouTube. They got a YouTube channel, so you can check it out there. Construction workers in Buckingham, England got a disturbing surprise when they began clearing land for a new residential development recently. The housing development includes 72 flats for retired individuals. The first step in making those new homes a reality was, of course, to dig. Once work began, though, the excavation crews quickly realized something was grossly amiss. There on the lot, buried in shallow graves, were the remains of 42 individuals. There was no indication that the area was a burial site of any kind. Adding an extra layer of creepiness to the bizarre discovery is the fact that the skeletons appeared to have been restrained before burial with their hands tied behind their backs. Reports paint an eerie picture of the scene, with remains being plucked from the ground without the oversight of local archaeologists or historians. In fact, the rapid removal of the skeletons is now a major point of contention between the local science community and the company developing the land. Yeah. At this point, nobody seems to have a clue as to the identity of these buried people, why they were bound, or when the burials took place. Whatever the case, the discovery certainly has historical significance, and archaeologists would love to be able to explain what happened there and when. They could date back from the Anglo-Saxon times, where there were killings in Buckingham, or during the Civil War, which also saw casualties, District Councillor Robin Stuckbury says. Or they could be criminals who were hanged on the gallows in town. At this point, it remains unclear if local scientists and archaeologists will ever have an opportunity to discover and examine the remains for themselves. For the moment, construction on the area appears to be paused. Imagine that, digging a hole and finding like 42 bodies. Like, how do you not call that in and say, we may have a problem here? No, the construction company says, yeah, just keep on digging. What the hell? All right, I know Shirk put this in there for, to freak me out. Another reason not to go back in the ocean. No. A large great white shark fitted with a tracking device has been observed swimming in an unexpected location just off the U.S. coast. The tracker of the shark, known as Unamaki, pinged in the far northeast of the Gulf of Mexico, almost directly south of Tallahassee, Florida, on January 31st, according to marine research nonprofit OSearch. Looking for where Unamaki is? We don't usually get great white sharks pings this far northeast of the Gulf of Mexico, OSearch wrote on their Facebook page. The most recent data from the shark's tracker suggests that the animal has moved in the westerly direction since. On February 2nd, Unamaki's monitoring device pinged almost directly south of Panama City Beach, Florida. OSearch began tagging sharks around the world since 2007, and Unamaki is the second largest the nonprofit has ever caught in the Atlantic region. The female measures 15 feet 5 inches, weighing more than 2,000 pounds. She was tagged in Cape Breton, Nova Scotia. See Ron in the chat room? Should have never moved to Nova Scotia. 2,000-pound great whites hang out there. That's dangerous. That was just last September. Unamaki is the biggest white shark currently pinging on the tractor. Yeah, the shark's name is Land of the Fog in the language of the Micmac First Nation people, referring to the area of Cape Breton. OSearch's researchers over the years have revealed some intriguing new insights into the lives of great whites due to this pinging effect. One of the most exciting recent discoveries that we are still learning about more is just how important Canada is to the Northwest Atlantic white sharks. For years, it has been known that places like Cape Cod are fall hotspots, but Canada was never really known on anyone's radar. But the two expeditions to Nova Scotia have shown that something very special is happening up there. There are way more great whites than anyone previously suspected. See, this is why I'm not going to Nova Scotia now. Can't go. Sorry, can't go. Well, you could go, but you don't want to go in the water. Get eaten. That's where Jaws is heading, right there. Nova Scotia. Nope. Raul Hernandez worked as a tour guide at a butterfly sanctuary in Mexico, and now he's a second activist campaigning for the conservation of monarch butterflies in the woods in which they hibernate to have been found dead. They're killing butterfly conservators. Never mind drug dealers, police officers, judges. Oh, the Mexican mafia has moved on to butterfly people. His body, which bore signs of beatings and a head injury, was found 2 days after the funeral of Homero Gomez. Mr. Gomez managed a monarch butterfly sanctuary in the same state and had received threats, his family says. The 44-year-old Raul disappeared on January 27th. He had left work as usual and was last seen at midday in the village called El Oyamel. His body was found 6 days later atop of a hill in the El Campanario Monarch Butterfly Sanctuary. Forensic experts said that his body was covered in bruises and he had a deep wound to his head. An investigation into his death is underway. Conservationists fear his death may be linked to that of Homero Gomez, who disappeared in the same area on January 13th. Mr. Gomez's body was found in a well on the 29th of January. His family said that prior to his disappearance, the activist had received death threats, warning him to stop his campaign against illegal logging. He was a tireless campaigner for the conservation of the monarch butterfly and the pine and fir forest where it hibernates. The sanctuary he managed opened in November as part of a strategy to stop illegal logging in the area, which is a key habitat for the species. Officials initially said his body showed no signs of violence, but a post-mortem examination revealed he had suffered a blow to the head before drowning in the well. Mexico's murder rate has risen in recent years, and official figures suggest 2019 had the highest rate ever recorded, with over 34,500 recorded killings. Many are believed to be carried out by criminal gangs who kill anyone who could interfere with their illegal activities, which range from drug and human trafficking to extortion, logging, and mining. Scientists have been fascinated by the orange and black butterflies because of the vast distances they fly each year to hibernate in Mexico, the longest migration of any insect. Researchers found that the butterflies use a kind of internal solar compass to guide them through their flight from Canada and the U.S. to the same area on the border between Michoacan and Mexico State every year. Once they reach the mountains hills of the Oyamal fir forests in that area, they cluster together and they stay warm. Tens of thousands of butterflies can be seen on a single tree, creating a colorful spectacle that has become a welcome tourist attraction, but environmentalists have warned that illegal logging poses a major risk to these forests and the butterflies which spend their winters there. Authorities in California said a sea lion pup was rescued while attempting to slowly cross a busy stretch of highway in the Los Angeles area. California Highway Patrol says a driver spotted the sea lion on the 710 freeway in Long Beach, called 911, and helped a group of troopers capture the wayward animal using a snare and blanket. Using a few officers, they were able to corral the seal onto a blanket, get him into a patrol car, which he seemed to enjoy. The sea lion was taken to Long Beach Animal Control and was later turned over to the Marine Mammal Care Center in San Pedro. Officials said the pup will eventually be released back into the ocean. And finally, a Minnesota woman is due to be reunited with the dog who ran away from her home 3 years ago after a Florida brewery put the canine's face on a beer can while it was staying in a shelter. Monica Mathis said she was on social media when she saw a story about Motorworks Brewing putting photos of dogs at the Manatee County Animal Services Shelter on the beer cans to find them homes. Yeah, this is a story we brought to you a couple weeks ago. Mathis, who lived in Florida before moving to Minnesota, quickly recognized one of the dogs, identified Day by the shelter, was her long-lost dog, Hazel. She said Hazel was an escape artist who would frequently flee the home to go running on the loose, and on that last occasion, about 3 years ago, the dog was never found. Mathis contacted the shelter and shared information that proved she was Hazel's former owner. The shelter said Hazel had a microchip when she was brought in, but the information was out of date. Microchip had license your pets, and remember to always keep your contact information up to date. Manatee County Animal Services says Hazel's voyage home is being funded by Friends of Manatee County Animal Services. That's really cool. The beer can worked. Thought of the Day happens every night at this time, where we ask a question on our Facebook and Twitter pages, then read your responses on the air, because we love the audience participation around here. Today's Thought of the Day is as followed. What do you think will be the big news of 2020 regarding UFOs? Thank you, Marty, for the clown. Appreciate that. All right, let's get to it. Stephen, aliens will land and they will get the coronavirus. Okay, that's sick humor. Very, very sick humor. I'm sounding very serious here, but internally, that is kind of funny. Just a little bit. On a scale of 1 to 10, like maybe a 1.2. So that's where I get the kind of funny. But still, I think that one's a little too soon. Jeanette, any news will be big news to many. The real news is being adopted incrementally from the interdimensionals into the public. The following video, see, you can't use a video here. I can't read a video. Can't read a video, Jeanette. Kelly, that, in fact, it wasn't the blue chickens that Corey Good and Andrew Bashajo were fighting, but green owls. I don't get it. Is that just me? I don't get it. Am I missing something? I don't know. All right. Now let's move on. Matthew, time dwelling. I don't know what that means. Really don't. Sparkles. Possibly that the military have been interacting with other species for years. However, some have such closed minds that if an actual person of another species was introduced by Trump or Putin on television as examples, some will simply scoff it off and say it is just a human in a costume. James, excellent question, Dave. Then he goes on not to answer it. It was like there was supposed to be some dramatic dun 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 there. I don't know if that was supposed to be it or not. Dun dun dun. Eric Cooper from Forest Moon. Wow. I think we're going to learn UFOs are real. No kidding. Thanks, Coop. Penman. Let me get out my crystal ball. He brought us nothing. The crystal ball was empty. Tom, a planet way down under? Always look up. Barry, more dialogue with little hardcore evidence to back it up. Waiting for government disclosures like expecting to win the lottery 5 times in a row at the $1 billion level. Lexi, we're going to learn that we have still no tangible evidence. Okay, probably. Michael, I predict that the stone wall of silence surrounding the many participants, projects, and events outlined the Admiral Wilson Core Secrets UFO smoking gun memo of the century will begin to spring a leak. Just saying. That might be a little bit much. Parker, there won't be any. Same old tic-tac sightings and radar blah. They feed us only what they want us to see. Just enough interest but not enough to make a difference or change minds. In the end, I don't think we would really want to know what's here for us. You'd never sleep properly again. Good way to end it. Thanks for that. We will get to a new thought of the day tomorrow morning on Facebook and Twitter. We'd love for you to write down your thoughts, and maybe we'll read them on the air, because that's what we love to do around here. Big thanks to Captain Shirk for putting together a fantastic SOR Newswire tonight. That story creeped me out about those 42 bodies, by the way. You can find all of our news at spacedoutradio.com, on the SOR Newswire, Facebook SOR Newswire as well. And thank you, Grant Cameron, for coming on in for UFOs 2020. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at home, at work, in your cars, wherever you may be, especially everybody in our chat rooms on LGAB, Revolution Radio, Spreaker, Facebook, the SOR Space Travelers Club on our website, and to all the snarkers and snarkettes hanging out on Twitter at #SpacedOutRadio. I know you're out there somewhere. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for sharing your weekend with us, and now your start of the week with us, because together, my friends, we own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Have a great night, everybody. We'll do it all again tomorrow. Geraldine Orozco is here with the Spiritual You. Be a lot of fun. Can't wait to see her again in San Francisco. UFOCon2020.com. Check it on out. I want to meet you there. Have a great night. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.